Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Kyuubi turns Naruto into a fox. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by icefireSpirit Wolf and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Destiny. Sometimes you think you have it figured out, and other times you've got it completely wrong, and other times, it turns out right but not quite in the way you expected. That evidently was how my destiny ended up being. Naruto ran as fast as his feet would take him. Towards the sounds of bombs exploding, the cries of ninja in pain or worse, the cries of them dying. All for the sake of me, they are dying and getting hurt because of me, he thought bitterly to himself. He landed stiffly on the ground, pausing from the long run he had just had. He wasn't tired, his stamina assured that. But he scanned all that lay before him. Madara had finally started the long-awaited battle, he and the Akatsuki, the ones both living and the ones brought back to life simply for this moment, versus what arms they could muster between the 5 ninja nations. Naruto shook his head. He should have stayed on the secluded island with Killer Bee and Yamato and the others, but he, being the Uzumaki he was, thought if it was his freedom ninja worth fighting and dying for, shouldn't he at least be there to fight with them? Instead of sitting and hiding on an island who knows where, learning about his past? Sure, he had gotten the Nine Tails under control, but what good would that do if it meant others died while he simply sat and meditated? He shoved off with a push of chakra. He had some unfinished business to take care of. Business that went by the name of Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto leapt onto a branch of one of the few remaining trees. Scanning once more. Over a third of the army was being held under a strong genjutsu created by Uchiha Itachi. Next was a team-up of power between Deidara throwing his bombs endlessly, and Sasori with his hundreds of puppets. Already he could tell that several squads of ninja were down due to the poison. He studied the medic ninja, as they worked endlessly trying to make enough antivenom to go around. Naruto gritted his teeth. War was terrible, and he hated it with every last fiber of his being, but he had to press on. Ignoring the battle and slipping behind the enemy lines, he traveled some ways until he finally found the one he was looking for. The ebony-haired teenager stood overlooking the battle from an outcrop of rocks. Naruto slowed and walked forward slowly, black eyes piercing him as he did. He stopped and stood defiantly, looking back up into those dark eyes. Sasuke stood urbane upon his mock throne of rock. He spoke casually, his eyes rolling across Naruto as his hand rested on the hilt of his sword. So ready to die, Naruto? Sasuke said, sneering at him. Naruto shook his head. It was unreal, what Sasuke had become, how far he was lost. But Naruto smirked. I have learned a lot more since the last time we met, Sasuke, he said calmly. Sasuke stood complacent, he blinked, which he did in a pompous manner as well, if that was even possible. Naruto shook his head, he was so arrogant it was unnatural. But he spoke, somewhere inside that young man, was the Sasuke he knew. I know what it's like for you, I really do, but that doesn't mean you have to be this way. Naruto said, hoping his words appealed to something inside Sasuke. Naruto continued, his 3 years of longing stretched into his next words. Come back to Konoha, please just come back. Sasuke waited, then he jumped down with a grunt, to measure Naruto with a steely glance. What does that have to do with anything? Naruto leveled him with his own glance as well, frustrated. It means that neither of us have to kill the other. Because you don't have to be like this. Anger flashed in Sasuke's eyes. Be like what? He spat back. Guilty, Naruto simply stated, taking Sasuke aback. What? He asked. Naruto shifted his foot in the dirt. You know what I said, guilty, you feel guilty. Sasuke studied him with a slight crease to his forehead, as if not understanding. Well, finally he is stooped by something, Naruto thought to himself. After you've heard the truth you wish you could take it all back. You never wanted to kill Itachi, you only did it because that's what everyone expected you to do, he said, expanding on his former statement. Sasuke stared at Naruto. He finally spoke up, his voice edged. How could you possibly? Naruto put up a hand silencing him. That's right, he silenced Sasuke. Don't even start, Sasuke. There are other people on this earth who have suffered far worse than you, Naruto said with a voice so quiet Sasuke had to strain to hear it, but with words so powerful they sent a chill down his spine. Sasuke said nothing, he thought to himself. Naruto is right in his random way. Life as a Jinchuriki had to have been hard, to be considered a demon all your life. Sasuke had to admit, it would take a strong man and a strong will to face up to that kind of pressure day in and day out, which is also probably why he's so stubborn and annoying. He added dryly to himself. There was a silence for a moment as each stared at the other. The sounds of the distant battle still rang on, but neither seemed to notice. Sasuke finally sighed. Why are you doing this, Naruto? Naruto shook his head. You still don't get it? Because for the 1000th time, Sasuke, you're my friend, and I made a promise to Sakura. You know me, I never go back on my word. Sasuke chuckled. He had always thought, long after he killed Itachi, about what he was going to do. True, he felt guilty about killing Itachi, but if there was one thing he knew he had to do still, even today, it would be to get revenge on that village. Konoha, the place he once called home. The thing that had all but destroyed the Uchiha clan. That accursed village forced his brother to carry the burden of killing his clan. Then Itachi had forced his own brother, forced him to kill his own brother, his last relation. Did no one understand that? Did no one see the wrongness in that? Now Naruto was all but forcing him to return to that kami-forsaken village in the name of friendship. There was no way, unless he paused as the devilish wheels in his head kept turning. Something revealed itself, something dark and deadly as killing one's own brother, as he figured out a way to get all this to work. True, he was bored with the Akatsuki and wouldn't mind leaving, but if he went back to the village Naruto would be there, and let's face it, he only had so much of his vision left. Although he didn't want to admit it, Naruto was stronger than him. However, he had one thing he could do that Naruto couldn't. He could kill the other. Naruto couldn't kill him, he was too pure, too innocent, something Sasuke envied. But despite that, he couldn't help smiling at the thought of what Naruto's face would look like. How would it contort when he knew Sasuke had betrayed him? Yet, under all this, Sasuke still felt some link to Naruto. They were rivals and friends. There was something about their destinies that were bound to each other. He held that respect to Naruto even to this moment, but like all bonds before, he would sever them in time. Suddenly the lights went on as he thought even harder. Danzo was the current Hokage. If he did return, Danzo would greedily accept him into his clutches. The old man was blinded and a fool, but he did have the same motive as Sasuke. He and Danzo could plot together for a bit then, but he would just kill Danzo when he outran his usefulness. But one thing kept getting in the way, Naruto. If he returned with Naruto, Naruto would get in the way unless he killed him now? Wait, if I did kill Naruto and blamed it on Madara, this would actually work. Everyone would be so upset and confused they would have to believe him. No one else is here, no one would know the truth. He thought to himself. Already he had thought up a story to win over the hearts and minds of the ones he would call his comrades. Sasuke smirked then said, so you're saying all I have to do is say, I'll return, then that's it, everything forgiven? He almost laughed at the thought of how simple everything was falling together. He was like a wolf standing before a young gullible lamb. The innocent lamb stepped forward, walking even closer to his hungry jaws. Yes, all you have to do is take my hand, Naruto said. Sasuke snorted inwardly. Naruto, you are so naive. Look, you even put your guard down. Sasuke stepped forward giving a sincere smirk, nothing too obvious to give away his true intentions. Wordlessly he thought of the childhood story his mother used to read to him. A single phrase obtruded in his mind. Oh grandmother, what large teeth you have. All the better to eat you with, he mumbled silently with his lips, huh? Naruto grunted. Nothing, he answered, then clasped Naruto's hand, and quickly drew his blade. Naruto thought it was almost a dream come true as Sasuke stepped forward to take his hand in peace. But randomly before they shook, Sasuke said something strange that put him off guard. All the better to eat you with. It was so random. Naruto was taken aback. That was a childhood story. It was about a wolf who tricked a. He felt the tensing of Sasuke's body. Before he could register what was going on, he saw a flash of steel, then a pain in the middle of his chest. He stared, still not comprehending what had happened. Not until he looked down to see the hilt of Sasuke's katana sticking out of his chest. Naruto looked back up. He couldn't believe it. How could he have been so stupid? Did he really think Sasuke would see the error of his ways that quickly? Of course it was all just a ploy to kill him. All of it was from the very beginning. Shame welled through Naruto. How did he let Sasuke win so easily? How did he let himself get devoured by the wolf? But Naruto couldn't finish that particular thought, as he felt his knees give out. Wait a second, what the hell is going on? Fox, what the hell is wrong with you? Do your job. What? Do you think I can heal this kind of damage? Naruto felt a chill go down his spine. Wait, can't you? He asked the fox, suddenly afraid. Sorry kid, even I have my limits. But at least you will be able to see your dear mom and dad soon. Sasuke watched him with a look of amusement. Naruto was kneeling on the ground before him as he retreated from his conversation with the fox. Already he felt a cold seeping through him, numbing his body and making him feel sluggish. His vision started to go foggy. He blinked his eyes trying to clear them, but then he heard Sasuke speak. You know Naruto, I actually do miss Konoha, he said languidly stepping down next to him. I might return and enjoy it a little bit before I destroy it, he said casually. He could see the anger sparking in Naruto's dying eyes. How pitiful, looks like the fox can't, or won't help him, he thought to himself, not believing the luck he was having. He continued to taunt the blonde. It will be easy, I'll tell them of how you came to win me over, he said placing a hand on Naruto's shuddering shoulders. Sasuke smirked then gripped the shoulder tighter, he continued. How I finally saw the light to my path, he said, holding back laughter. Then he said, sounding as if he was telling a story. We faced Madara together, but he turned his head away, bowing it as if sorry for the next thing he said. But alas, then you got caught in a genjutsu like you always do. You were never good at that, were you? He added, asking Naruto. Naruto made a gruntle sound as blood began to drip down his chin. Sasuke wiped it away as he spoke as if Naruto were a child with food on his face. And before I could get to you, he had stabbed you. He gave a fake sob, grabbing Naruto's face, holding it as he stared into this angry, pleading, dying eyes. I tried saving you, he began softly, leaning in. But sadly, I am not a medic ninja, he said finally. He sighed then looked to Naruto. He gave him a few pats on the shoulders. Don't worry, he said, pointing a finger into Naruto's chest. I'll tell them how your only regret was not being able to become Hokage. Then he stood up, wiping his hands. Oh, he said, remembering something randomly, I almost forgot. You also said that they should welcome me back to the village and trust me again, Sasuke said finally, giving off a cold, cruel smile, one that revealed how far gone his sanity truly was. Naruto felt a cold hatred run through him, even as he felt his life energy drained from him. He finally realized that he could not let this happen, he had to somehow stop this. But he was dying. He knew that Kyuubi's power was sealed away, so he couldn't heal. He had to stop Sasuke somehow. He needed to prove Sasuke wrong, that he was false, a betrayer, just like he always was. He was never going to change. Although he finally saw Sasuke for what he was, he had to have him return to the village. It was part of his promise, and no matter what, he never went back on his word. Maybe he could summon a toad and relay the message? No, it wouldn't work. The bastard was going to stand there and watch him die. He was enjoying this too much. He had to do something soon though. He could feel already the unnatural pull of death near him. Naruto had no option. He had to do something, anything, with the Kyuubi, anything that would grant him more time at least, or even stop this bloody war. He closed his eyes and fell back on the earth, surrendering himself one last time to the blackness of his inner self. He felt the real world fall away as he slipped into his inner realm where the Kyuubi was housed. He opened up the orb in which the Kyuubi was contained. The fox appeared. It growled and snapped at him, its fangs bared and its tails lashing. Naruto was not affected. He spoke, his voice commanding attention. Listen up, you old fox. The fox paused, stunned for having a mortal speak such a way at him. I am dying right now. Well, no shit, Sherlock, the Kyuubi interjected, trying to remain the boss, as always. Naruto growled at him. He, a tiny human, growled at the Kyuubi no Kitsune. That got the fox's attention. So I want to make this quick. If you wish not to die with me, I would listen up. The fox perked his ears up, but remained silent. I will offer you freedom, in return to some simple people needing to be killed. Now the fox, who has been sealed inside humans for 3 generations, liked the idea of freedom, and the feeling of killing again made him quite susceptible to listening to Naruto even more. Naruto continued, when I die, the blonde started to say. He paused but shook his head, then gave a heavy sigh, gathering courage. When I die, he said stronger, I want you to kill the Akatsuki. They have been trying to get you for the longest time, and they have your brethren sealed away as well. Now that's all I wish, just get rid of the Akatsuki. Do you think you can handle that? He said, challenging the Kyuubi. Kurama stared down at the child. No, not child, he has grown. He, even when facing death, he still thinks about others, about me. He cares about me. Why? What did I ever do him? I caused him harm, and made a burden on him, and yet, he wishes to free me and my siblings. This mortal has more guts than I. The fox thought of this sadly. A new feeling blossomed in the fox. He had a revelation. He lifted his head, then looked at the boy. He smiled. He would accomplish this task. He would not let this human who had changed him, who had cared for him like that man of long ago. Kurama could see the shadow of that man, somewhere in that boy's face. Pardon him, this young man's face. Kurama nodded. He had long awaited the day where he could run free and escape the human hellhole. He was even overjoyed. He believed even that one of his tails was wagging. He stopped it before the mortal noticed. He was itching to get out. He wanted to get back at the Uchiha Madara, the man who had used him like an average weak summoning. A demon only has to fall for a trick once to build up immunity to it. So thus the Sharingan, and any other forms of Sharingan, would be no effect to him. The fox smiled. A fox always has something hidden up his sleeve, he said quietly to himself. What? Naruto said up at him. Kurama waved it from mind. He looked at Naruto and said, I agree, Uzumaki Naruto, freedom in exchange for certain mortals' deaths, understood, like you. A demon can never go back on its word. Once it has created a pact, if one breaks it, he loses his soul. He stated simply, it was the truth, the brutal, ugly truth, how they could lose something so precious for breaking a small thing. Why did their goddess make them like so? The demon and human studied each other for a bit, both of them finally realizing that the one who stood before him was not as bad as everyone thought it out to be. Naruto then sighed and the chains, binding the Kyuubi, fell. The great fox nodded his head to Naruto. He was one of the 2 humans to ever gain control over him, and no matter what you are, you have to honor that being, and give him, or her, the utmost respect. The Kyuubi left Naruto. Naruto, being the Uzumaki he was like his mother. He didn't die right away. Instead, he got to watch the satisfying expression of Sasuke's face as the Kyuubi appeared. The penchant Uchiha backed away quickly. Naruto could see fear on the noble features of his rival. Something that at least gave him some amusement. Despite the situation, already he felt his life source drop to very low levels. He fought for breath as he turned his head to see Kyuubi, with a triumphant roar, lashed at Sasori of the Red Sand first, then another tail at Itachi, effectively breaking the genjutsu that held a part of the army. The ones captured fell to the ground, sighing in relief as they were saved from their private tortures. Naruto had to admit that Itachi was powerful to hold so many. No wonder he was a known master of genjutsu. Naruto spoke, finding it hard to find his voice, which was frightening for him. His voice always came so freely. Most of the time he was told to shut up or be quiet. What is the matter? Asked Sasuke, afraid of the power I used to control. You better watch yourself, Sasuke. I will be watching. He probably wouldn't, but he wanted to at least make an impression of the Uchiha. Gods knows he needed to be intimidated by something. Sasuke turned his head to him. Naruto dug his eyes into the others, wanting the Uchiha to never forget. He did this until his vision all but faded to black. Naruto wandered in a realm of complete and utter blackness for some time. Abysmal and depressing, it carried out for eons it seemed. Before he could commence his freaking out, a light appeared. With a sigh he went towards it, unfathomably drawn to the warmth that radiated from it. But out of nowhere a man appeared, dressed in formal robes and holding a scroll in his hand. He floated radiating in complete white, no, not white, even brighter than that. He floated in midair as he turned his pupilless eyes upon Naruto, which unnerved him to some degree. Uzumaki Naruto, said the man. The words resounded and hung in the air, as they came from lips that did not even move. You are forbidden to enter eternal peace. Naruto could not manage a single syllable. You made a pact with a demon, an offense taken seriously to the heavenly beings. Demons are our sworn enemy, the cast-off kin of us. They disrupt our ways, they change the way we have foretold things, making the future unclear. Naruto said nothing once more, not because he had nothing to say, but because he couldn't. It was like they had taken his voice away from him. As said in the holy script, one who makes a deal with demons, he said, unrolling the scroll, is cursed to wander the earth unseen and unheard to mortals. With that being said, Naruto suddenly found himself sitting on the ground, in front of his own body. Sakura was in the medic tents working profusely trying to save lives and limbs. She heard another explosion go off. 2 more dead, 6 more wounded and 3 more critical people going to be coming in. Sakura thought to herself, looking up from the man she was done with. Moving on to the next person, there is nothing we can do, except relieve his pain, she said, looking at the wound. Almost half his torso was ripped away. It was a wonder he was still alive. She was sad to let one with such a strong will die, but she had to. There was no way to fix him. If they did, it would take every last medic needs strength, something they couldn't afford. A great roar broke through the area, freezing everyone in their tracks, as a pressure pushed around them, a pressure of a great power source, familiar to her, but still so powerful she shook. It was not like a roar of a man in pain. This was different. It was insurmountably greater. It shook the ground and scattered birds in the distance. A chill went down her spine because she knew that a roar and chakra signature like that could only belong to one thing. And that one thing was supposed to be far, far away, safe from all harm. Neatly sealed away in a person. A person with sunlight blonde hair and azure blue eyes, who never ever gave up. So it was impossible that he was dead. But if that thing that roared was out fighting, killing, and to put it mildly saving their asses, then the person it was once contained in had to be was dead. Realization hit her like a fist from Tsunade to the gut, and she was not the only one to put 2 and 2 together. She looked up into the eyes of her nearest squad member. She looked back in fearful, sad eyes. All of a sudden Sakura found herself running out, abandoning her post, and all of the wounded in the tent to go outside. To confirm the great beast named the 9 Tails, flex one of those said tails to destroy one of the Akatsuki like a flea. It gave a howl and sent more tails lashing out with such power, swatting away Akatsuki like flies on a hot day. She saw one cloaked figure rise up. She saw the mask. No doubt it was Madara trying to control the beast. In ways she didn't know how could someone even think about controlling a force of nature? But Madara must not have listened to that lesson, because he suddenly found himself crushed into the ground by one of that large hand-like paws. Wondering why the Sharingan was not working, a chuckle broke from the beast, and it roared as it finally had its own revenge of crushing the self-proclaimed immortal being. A few more flicks of its tails, and the Akatsuki was destroyed. Then with one last look and final victorious howl, it disappeared in a poof of smoke as it teleported itself away. A silence descended upon the ninja. Some had not yet registered, still holding weapons, they waiting for the next wave of enemies, but none came. Ninja looked to each other. For a few moments no one could comprehend what had happened. Then the silence broke, and in jubilation all of them, no matter which nation they were from, reached out to each other, hugging, clapping, crying, not even knowing each other's names. They gripped one another. They did this just because they were happy. Happy they had survived, happy they had lived. A great cheer rose up from all of them. But then those of the Fire Nation died down. Realization hit them as well. One man of the sand, the Kazekage, hadn't bothered to cheer with his men. Gaara had already made his way to Sakura, who sat kneeling on the ground. Strength vanished from her, she cried. A look of silent grief etched upon his features. Sakura, she shook her head. It can't be. He was sent away, for safety. It might be a trick or something. But even she could not lie to herself. Tears already flooded from her eyes. Gaara merely held her as she cried. She cried, though, not because of grief, but also in a small way happiness, when she saw all the men of different nations, joining together and laughing, crying, cheering. Seeing them come together in peace, she knew Naruto's dream had come true. His dream of peace was met. Yet sadness hit her harder when she realized that he would never get to see it. Sakura broke from him. We have to find him, she screamed, her voice hoarse. She ran, not knowing where to look, but she would find him. She had to. Gaara chased after her. They passed by Kiba and Shikamaru, who were coming in from the battle. As they helped drag in the wounded, watch them, they too tried to stop Sakura. But to no avail. You just couldn't, and you didn't want to. Naruto sat unnervingly staring into his own dead eyes. He didn't remember bleeding from the mouth when he died, but I guess it was so because blood covered the bottom half of his face and still dripped out. Then he did remember randomly. Sasuke had wiped something from his face. It had to have been blood. His entire front of his jacket was drenched in the crimson substance, dyeing the fabric a muddy brown. Damn it, that was my favorite jacket, he thought to himself. Then looked to his face. Even an idiot could tell, after one look of his face, knew he died painfully. Although he couldn't remember grimacing when had he done that. Sasuke suddenly rose. Oh, awake from our comatose emo bastard state, are we? Naruto thought with disgust. Sasuke leaned forward and gripped his sword hilt. He braced a foot on Naruto's cadaver and pulled it out with a grunt. It took some effort, but finally with a ripping sound it came free. It must have been lodged in his spine or something. Calmly he sat back down and brought out his kit that he used to clean his precious blade. He then absently began to purge the blade from the blood. Then all of a sudden he heaved it into the ground. Naruto jumped in surprise at the sudden movement, plus it had fell through his foot. Why, god damn it! Why? He screamed to the heavens. Naruto was unnerved by the sound of pain in his voice. It almost made his heart go out to him, almost. Sasuke continued. Why? Why did my clan have to be destroyed? Look what I have done to avenge it. Destroy my brother, now my best friend. Tears fell from him. Naruto, I swear, if I had grown up normally without the clan massacre, we probably would be best friends, and we would have grown old together sharing stories. But I couldn't, he said sobbing, his voice cracking. I won't let that village get away with what they did to my clan, what they did to Nichan, the pain they caused him and me. He cried silently for a bit, soft sobs racking his body. He continued, you were in my way, I had to do it, right? He directed the question to dead Naruto, as though he was asking Naruto's corpse if it was perfectly okay to kill him. Naruto had to admit, he felt sorry for him. Wait. He felt sorry for the man who killed him? He shook his head. What was wrong with him? What the hell? Naruto exclaimed. Do you really think the only way at getting revenge is killing everything? He said, getting up yelling at Sasuke. Who said you had to get revenge in the first place anyways? Why did you have to go and be a massive idiot all over the place? You moron! Naruto cursed himself and Sasuke. He sat back down, crossing his arms over his chest. This sucks, he can't even hear me. Fuck, this sucks majorly. What the hell am I going to do? Naruto lamented in his pain by himself. Sasuke had grown silent and comatose once more, and no amount of jeering from Naruto seemed to wake him. Naruto had tried poking him, but found out that his hand as well would fall through Sasuke's flesh. Naruto had screamed then in fright and backed away at that. It was too creepy. He really was a ghost. He hyperventilated for a bit until he calmed down, and watched as a certain Pinkette ran up to his body. She collapsed and sobbed into his bloody chest, not caring that his blood was getting into her precious hair. Shikamaru, Kiba and Gaara were behind her. They all looked down at his body, then to Sasuke. They converged on him. But when Shikamaru lifted him to punch him, he saw the tears, and hesitated. He glanced to Kiba then to Gaara. They shrugged, not knowing what to think or do. Shikamaru instead knocked Sasuke unconscious, then tied his hands behind his back. Not sure of what else to do, but then they also turned to his body. All three of them looked down at Naruto as Sakura tried to clean up some blood coming from his face, wiping it clean of the offending substance. Shikamaru looked away. Damn it, Naruto, this wasn't how it was going to be. I thought you said you were going to be Hokage. How are you going to be able to do that when you're dead? Shikamaru said, letting a few tears fall. This is so troublesome, he gasped out as he wiped tears that came out of his eyes. This was the second time he had lost someone important to him. First Asuma and now Naruto. What cursed world was he going to have to live in from now on? Gaara suddenly fell to his knees, crying as well. Naruto, he said, you and me were one of a kind. You were the only other person I knew to be like me. You saved my life more times than I can count. You taught me to believe and to feel love again. We were going to be Kages together, you said to me once. It was us against the world. Now I guess it's only me. Gaara bowed his head as tears slipped from his pale blue orbs. Kiba placed a hand on his shoulder, giving some comfort. They stayed there, numbly absorbing the shock for a few moments of silence before Kakashi, whose arm was bandaged with blood-soaked wrappings, sank to his knees as well. Guy appeared next to him and put a hand on his shoulder. Tenten and Niji ran up next, both of them covered in scratches and Niji limping slightly. Lee is in the medic tent, Sky-sensei, Tenten said absently before looking at Naruto, then turning away. Her shoulders moved up and down, hinting to the fact that she was sobbing. Niji closed his eyes and said nothing. Kiba looked around. Where is Hinata? He asked. Niji answered, she is helping the medics look after Choji, Lee, and Shino. Kiba gave a curt nod. Good, she doesn't need to see this. I'll tell her the news if she hasn't figured it out already. Kakashi suddenly started to talk. I was supposed to protect him. He was my student, and my mentor's only son, and I failed them both. I do not deserve to be a ninja, he choked out. He then slumped against Guy's leg. Guy leaned down and waved a hand in front of Kakashi's visible eye. He didn't focus or flinch or anything. Kakashi! Guy yelled out, shaking Kakashi's shoulders. Crap! He's going into shock or something. He looked to Sakura, who was unable to talk, much less perform her duties as a medic ninja. With a growl he hauled Kakashi over his shoulder, then said to Niji, I'm taking Kakashi in. Someone get a body bag and mark it good so we know who is in it. He yelled angrily, "These children, what were they doing? Now was not the time to grieve, they had duties to perform." Niji nodded and rubbed the few tears out of his eyes. "I'll get the body bag, and some people have to take Sasuke in as a POW. For the time being before we can sort through what happened, is everyone understood?" he asked. Looking around, silent nods answered him. Sakura started to pull herself together, said she had duties to perform. Already her mind was going through how Naruto died. A sharp projectile punctured his skin and clipped the superior vena cave and the ascending aorta, entering at a slight angle, missing spine, but clipped the nerve-ending controlling movement to the legs. Sakura sighed. Even if he did survive, he would have been paralyzed from the waist down. But even so, it probably would still be better than dead, she thought to herself. But something told her no, that Naruto wouldn't be able to handle something like that. But maybe he could? Maybe he would have been those people who keep on running when they can't even walk. But he died from blood loss, she said, snapping herself form her thoughts. Further analysis would tell me more of his conditioning, but I as a medic ninja declare him dead at the scene. Uzumaki Naruto, age 17, ranked Chunin, Konoha ninja, died at 5:31. On November 17th she then stood stiffly. My job as a medic ninja is done. She then stumbled away. Naruto also stood and stumbled away. He couldn't believe it either. He knew that he was dead. It was pretty obvious, he had done the damn dying. But it just hit him fully now. He was dead. Now he was a ghost of some sort. Well, not some sort, he was a full-on ghost, and it was true none of them could hear him. He had screamed and begged for them to hear him back there. He just wanted to desperately make them feel better. It was ironic. He was dead, yet he was trying to comfort them. He ran away, away from his friends and away from that accursed ground. Away from that terrible war, everything. He just ran, not knowing what to do or where to go. Naruto finally stopped in a clearing of trees, next to a fast-rushing river. He peered into the water but saw nothing. Of course not, I'm dead, so I wouldn't have a reflection. He turned away from the river only to chance upon a sight he never had seen before. A fox maybe twice the size of a horse lay stretched out basking in the sun. Its 9 identical tails curled passively around it. Kyuubi? Naruto finally said. The fox opened an eye lazily, then seemed to register him. "Ah, it's you, kid. I see you got the boot for dealing with me." "Sorry about that," he said, as though he were talking to Naruto about the weather. Naruto stared at him confused. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Let me guess, they said something about you made a deal with me, and said that you were forbidden to enter heaven, am I right?" Naruto's mouth gaped open. That was exactly so. "Why, yeah," Naruto said. The fox snorted. "They are still hung up on that. Geesh, those gods can really hold a grudge. Well, like I said, I apologize for that, my bad." Naruto blinked as he sat down. "So what do I do now?" Kyuubi spoke without opening his eyes. He must really like the sun, apparently. "Travel the world, do whatever," he said, waving a paw, as if trying to shoo Naruto away like a pesky toddler. Naruto slumped down. Note: Kyuubi can hear and see Naruto because he is a mortal and a demon. But what about Konoha? How am I going to warn them of Sasuke's plans? Then after some time he added sadly, how am I going to save my friends? The fox opened his eyes and lifted his large muzzle. His fur seemed to glow in the sunlight, as his warm eyes gazed into Naruto's. Kyuubi sighed, scratching his head. "You know, usually when you die, you leave that stuff behind and forget about it." Naruto shook his head, standing up suddenly. "No," he said sharply, "Konoha was my home. It was my father's home. It is where all the people I care about the deepest live. I can't let that get destroyed. I must protect them. I must protect them all, because they are the ones I treasure most," Naruto said, looking into the Kyuubi's startled eyes. Kyuubi with a heavy sigh stood. Naruto looked up at the fox. "Where you going?" he asked as the fox shifted his bulk around. The fox glared at him. "I'm not going anywhere. I am just getting ready for what I am about to do." Before Naruto could say anything, the fox spoke with a great booming voice, proclaiming to all the earth, it seemed. "Hear me, all demons from this world and the next. This is Kyuubi no Yambi." He paused for a moment. "I have traveled far and wide but have never met a soul so strong and willful to continue on his quest even in death. If any demon can give this soul a way to fulfill this desire, answer my call." Seconds passed by and nothing happened, but then from out of the woods, a figure emerged, riding a large white wolf, hair dark as a tree bark sprouting vines and flowers. Eyes green as the grass beneath Naruto's feet. She came closer, her alluring eyes looking into his. She was clad in a loose dress the color of earth that flowed freely from her body like wind. It was bunched at the waist, clasped with a sea blue sash that had designs etched upon it that Naruto knew no words to describe them. Her skin was like an almond shell, glowing like sunlight drifting over water. Silver necklaces set with burning amber enveloped her throat, while rubies dangled from her ears. Gold bracelets chimed with her every movement as she made her way towards them. She dismounted from her mighty steed, who disappeared with a poof. She stood before them in her full glory. Naruto looked away. He felt like he didn't deserve to see her beauty. She chuckled, her voice chiming, astounding, beguiling. "Greetings, Kyuubi. I am Ukami no Megami, your goddess. I am here to answer your request, my creation." Kyuubi bowed with a graceful opulence, then lifted his eyes to her. "What is your gift?" he asked her softly, like a child talking to his mother. The goddess smiled and placed a hand under his chin, lifting his head lightly. She spoke, showing off her pure white teeth. New life, she whispered with excitement. Kyuubi widened his eyes. You know that's, he began, but she silenced him. I know I can't bring him back as a human, but I can bring him back as one of my own creations. She turned her head to him, raising her eyebrow in amusement. Uzumaki Naruto, are you willing to do whatever it takes to protect those you wish to protect? Naruto nodded, stepping forward, her bare feet falling on the ground as delicately as a deer's would. Even if it meant returning into a body that is not your own? Naruto nodded. At this moment he would take anything, he would do anything to save the village he loved. She paused before him, her complete radiance, almost blinding Naruto. Good, very good, I am pleased, she said, her voice carrying smoothly like a bird's song. Step forward, she commanded him, as if trying to calm a startled creature. Naruto did as he was bided. All argument and free will seemed to vanish. She then spoke. Naruto, I will give you the power and the stamina of a wolf, as well as the mind and versatility of the fox. She said, studying him. Naruto found his voice. What are you going to do to me? He asked her. If he had a heart, he knew it would be beating like a hammer in his chest. With a coy smile she spoke. Naruto, my dear, I am turning you into a demon. Naruto stared at her, not knowing what to say. She placed a hand on his shoulder. He felt a great warmth fill him, as though he was being set on fire. Only it didn't hurt, like it was a good fire. She spoke to him, words falling from a faraway place. I am placing your soul into a new body, this may tingle. He felt life flow into him once more, filling up his hollowed form. She was right, he tingled all over. He felt like a newborn lamb, shaking in the fear of this new strange world. Then he felt the change. Sinking, he shrunk towards the ground. His jaws extending forward, his eyes positioning farther apart and back. His ears seemed to move to the top of his head. It felt weird, both bad and good at the same time. He felt a prickling sensation as his skin grew fur. So much fur, he felt warm and covered. He felt internal changes, lungs expanding, spin shifting, organs moving about, and yet, it did not hurt. His body continued this metamorphosis until with one last burst of heat it was done. Opened his new eyes, he peered up the ground, he looked up. Already everything was different. His view on the world was drastically changed. His senses felt too strong, too bright, too loud, too smelly, too much. He groaned and clamped his eyes shut. He felt his new heart thrumming in his chest. But he felt a calming hand on his shoulder. Its warmth drifted down through his thick fur. He looked up into eyes that gave him the stability and the reassurance he needed. She beamed down at him. Rise, she said softly. He did so, not breaking his eye contact with her. It was different on 4 legs, instead of 2. But he got the hang of it. Kyuubi stepped up to him. Already his nose was registering everything about the fox. Okay Naruto, now it's time to make you a demon, may I? Kyuubi said, looking to the goddess. She nodded. Of course you may. Kyuubi grinned. Welcome to our world, my new brother. Kyuubi said as he felt a great power well inside of him. It surged through him, filling to almost the point of breaking. I am giving your own chakra network. All demons have them. Naruto groaned. He could tell by the density of his network that he had a lot of chakra, and it was potent, much stronger than any human's. Kyuubi and the goddess stepped back. The goddess circled him, muttering under her breath. Yes, this will do. Excellent craftsmanship, Kurama. The fox lifted his head higher, growing from the compliment. With a final affirmative nod, the goddess stepped back. Yes, it is finished. Now go to the riverside, Naruto, and see what you have become. Naruto tentatively went to the river, peering into the water to see what he looked like. He gasped as what looked back at him surprised him. A light creme-colored wolf with his deep azure eyes. The wolf was covered with very fine, soft, thick fur, had large, wide paws, a deep, long chest which would be perfect for running long distances for long periods of time. This supple frame was held up by long, powerful legs. His body was short and sturdy with a long fox-like tail attached. Upon said tail was a tip of pure white, marking the small bit of fox within him. He turned back to the goddess and Kyuubi. The goddess stepped forward, almost standing on top of him. Are you ready? She said, grinning softly. Naruto was confused. Ready for what? The goddess smirked. The beginning of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Without warning, she pushed him into the river. The powerful current easily captured him. He fought against the torrent, trying to keep his head up. The water roared around him. When he managed to come back up, he yelled at her, coughing water. What was that for? I can't get out, the current is too strong. The goddess, who was growing smaller by the second, seemed to speak into his mind. Then let the current take you. 1. That being said, Naruto lost his battle with the current, and he let it carry him away. Hinata worked herself until someone forced her to stop. But she didn't want to, because if she stopped she would have nothing to keep her mind from the thoughts that just hovered out of her consciousness. Like vultures slowly circling above. She knew she had to face it, but she didn't want to. She tried reasoning and making up excuses, but it did no good. She knew Naruto was dead, that there was nothing she could do about it. He was gone, and he was out of her life forever. The realization hit her. She dropped what she was holding and stumbled out of the tent. She felt weak and sick. Grief and hopelessness overtook her as she crumpled to the ground and sat, unable to think coherently. With every sound of footsteps she hoped it was Naruto returning, yet each time it was revealed to be someone else. She became more and more lost into her grief. She slumped herself next to a tree, clamped a hand over her mouth, her fingers digging into her face. A arm gripped across her chest as she bit her hand and sobbed. She desperately wanted to control herself but could not. Memories and tears flooded her relentlessly. Her voice became sore, unable to produce more sound, as her heart, an entire being, seemed to ache with a feeling of empty hollowness. She didn't know how long it was. But finally the tears stopped, but still the sadness clung to her. She knew no name for it, only though it felt as if she were a ghost among the others, alone in her own little world of perpetual grief and agony. Then a figure clad in dark purple strode towards her. It was Kyuubi. She looked up at him and into his dirt-smeared face. She could see the trail of tears down his cheeks, marring the dirt and his clan face paint. It only confirmed her worst fears. Suddenly an anger overwhelmed her. Anger at everyone and everything. How could they let him die? How dare the others around them not cry? Naruto was the best and greatest person she ever known. Kyuubi reached for her. She struck at him like a snake, a cold venom building in her blood. Don't touch me, you let him die, he's dead. Dead, dead, dead. And I'll never see him again, she screamed. The voice seemed not her own, even though she heard it fall from her lips. She felt her tongue contort and create the vile syllables as she screamed in rage at her classmate, teammate, and dear, dear friend. She screamed at the top of her lungs, not caring if the entire camp heard. She pulled at her hair and face, trying to release the emotion in any way she knew how. Finally the wave of anger passed as exhaustion took over. She felt weak and terrible. She collapsed, clutching Kyuubi's leg like it was her lifeline. Kyuubi, she sobbed. What do I do? What do I do? She asked. Kyuubi bent down and reached for her. This time she wrapped herself as tightly as she could, wanting to feel some comfort, any comfort at all. Gaara, Neji, Shikamaru, and Yamato carried in the body bag with Naruto in. It had the mark of Konoha insignia on it. But to further separate it from the many other bags, they immortalized a swirl on it so everyone knew it was Naruto's. Kyuubi had went off to find Hinata while the rest carried Naruto's corpse to the body collectors. They were set up and sealing the bodies in special sealing scrolls made for the dead. One man in charge looked at them. He opened up a ledger book. Name? He said professionally. Shikamaru almost said his own, but realized they were asking for the body's name. He spoke after removing the lump in his throat. Uzumaki Naruto. The man sighed sadly and nodded. Even he, a Konoha body collector, had heard the feats of this young man. Who couldn't? He saved so many people in so many ways, and so many countless times. Age 17, right? The man said, filling in the blacks. They nodded. Too young, the man added under his breath. Another group of nods. The man looked up. He's technically a genin, right? Shikamaru smirked despite himself. That was right. Naruto never got his rank promoted, what with the attack and the war. The man spoke well. From what I witnessed and heard, he's more skilled than that. I'll give him the highest rank I can give Anbu captain, right? He got promoted before we left. Shikamaru widened his eyes, then realized that was probably true. Naruto was skilled enough for that. Shikamaru nodded, casting onto what the man was saying. Yes, Shikamaru spoke. He wouldn't stop bragging about it, Shikamaru said, turning to Gaara. Gaara nodded. Don't worry, you have Suna's full authority to claim him as a Konoha elite. They set Naruto down gently. Gaara looked down at Naruto's black bag, with the Konoha swirl. He kneeled and placed a hand upon it, skimming his fingers over it. Goodbye, my best and greatest friend, he said quietly. Bowing his head, he started the first line of a well-known poem. We thrive in the chaos of enemy tide. Shikamaru joined in. Quiet shinobi don't need dens to hide. The others joined in at this time and they finished in unison. Our only concern is to watch and to wait for our enemy to open the gate. When the small memorial was said, the body handlers took the bag, giving it the utmost care as they laid it down to be sealed in the special scroll that would halt the decaying process, at least until they got to Konoha and prepared for his funeral. They staggered out free of the physical burden, but then were weighed down by the emotional burden. Just then they heard a woman scream, "You let him die. Now I'll never see him again." Just as suddenly as it rose, it quieted. They all could guess who that was. Looks like she took the news hard, Neji said. I think we all did, Shikamaru said. I mean, Naruto is the first from Rookie 9 to die. A cold chill hit all of their spines. Who is next? Splayed across all their minds. But then Yamato said, do not worry, remember, we have achieved one of Naruto's goals, peace, something Naruto would be damned proud of all of you for doing. Shikamaru smirked and let a tear slip of remembering their comrade. Yeah, but we couldn't have done it without him. I bet that idiot is looking down on us now, eating every bowl of ramen in sight, and annoying the heck out of Old Man Third and every other soul in heaven. A small outburst of laughter came from the group as they all thought of him, all of them knowing that's exactly like Naruto. Shikamaru turned to Gaara. So now what? Gaara looked at him. The nations will break camp in the morning, going out separate ways. Everyone will be slowed down due to injured and the wagons carrying the supplies, but everyone will return home eventually. But right now, tonight is the night of honoring our fallen, and celebrating our win, which means I am going to go get drunk in my tent. I will see you tomorrow. With that, the Kazekage left them. That night, true to his word, many ninja and kunoichi did get drunk. Most of them were quiet about it. In fact, Niji, Shikamaru and Kiba all drank until they could not even walk straight. But the reason was only to rid the feeling of sadness for their fallen comrade. Also, it was the only way for them to sleep that night, what with all the memories haunting them. Hinata woke in the morning, her sore eyes slowly opening. She moaned as she got up. Sakura was already out, her bags and bedroll cleaned up, probably doing her rounds at the medic tent. Hinata thought. She rose and went to the command station where many other ninjas stood waiting. Suddenly there was a flurry of movement, and all 5 Kages came out of the tent. Gaara to Hinata seemed sluggish. B-san guarded his brother's armless side. B gave a nod to Hinata, she nodded back. Attention, called out Danzo, it is time for the 5 nations to break up camp. Each nation will head in the direct vicinity of their home. We have requested that all clan members group together and head out in an alphabetical order. There was some mumbling and grouching about. But by midday Konoha ninja were heading out. Hinata walked far behind of the Hyuga clan. Even Niji, who was the heir to the second branch, was ahead of her. No one bothered her, and if they did feel bothered about it they did not mention it, mostly due to the vast number, and the supply train and injured. Travel was slow. They ended up guiding themselves by a river that tore through the land. They traveled no more than at least 100 yards from it. Hinata felt it refreshing, hearing the distant sound of the water. It gave her something to think about, leaving her mind from wandering. Naruto tore and scratched at the muddy bank, grappling for something to grab onto and pull himself out of the river. He was dog-tired, no pun intended, and desperately wanted the feel of solid ground beneath his paws. Finally Naruto got hold of a wrangled old tree root. He pulled himself half out of the water, then guided himself down a few meters until he came to a small eddy. He pulled himself out of the water and plopped down next to a patch of water reeds. He welcomed the few rays of sunlight to warm him and the slight wind to dry himself off. As he sunk into a dreamless sleep, Hinata woke up the next day feeling slightly refreshed from the long trek they had took. Deciding to get some peace and quiet before the other ninja woke up, she left her tent. It was early morning, the sun just beginning to rise in the west. She walked briskly in the crisp air. The leaves on the trees were edged with yellow, hinting that fall was on its way. She walked through the small line of forest before coming upon the view of the fast river. She sighed once more as she contemplated about Naruto. There was a small twinge of pain and a deep stab of sorrow still fresh upon her heart, but she knew life would go on. She knew if Naruto was there he would want her to go on, and so she shall. Even if the barest memory of him dragged her into a raging hurricane of agony and sorrow. She followed the river for quite some ways when she stumbled upon a poor sight. A creature lying on its side in an exhausted heap. It was a light creme color, rather large but a quarter smaller than Akamaru, yet still quite big. Its fur was ragged and damp, but she saw a side move in a slight breathing pattern. She carefully made a sound giving away her presence. The ears perked up and the head turned her way. Her eyes were inexplicably captured by light blue ones. Hinata instantly recognized that this creature was a wolf, and that this wolf, for some strange crime against nature, was not wild or hostile. It looked at her with eyes that held a certain stability and curiosity. Its tail wagged slightly. Hinata bent down, she held out a hand, she made soft calming sounds. The wolf staggered to its feet. Fear clutched in her throat, but she remained strong. The wolf hesitantly moved towards her. She let him come to her. Then when he relaxed next to her, she hesitantly reached her hand to him, hoping, praying that he wouldn't bite her. Those jaws were full, so sharp fangs. Why was she doing this? Or right, the eyes, so serene, beautiful, calming. He slightly jumped when she touched him, but he stayed put. Amazed, she ran her fingers through his damp soft fur. She did this for who knows how long, feeling his supple form beneath her, the power that emanated from within. What kind of power was this? Soon it grew apparent that the camp was starting to wake up. She stood and gave him a final pat. I would love to take you, Fluffy Wolf, she said, nicknaming it on the spot, but I don't want to take you away from your home in the wild. The wolf looked at her as if he actually understood her with those unnerving intelligent eyes. Hinata turned to walk away. The wolf was instantly by her side in step. She paused, he paused, she continued, he continued, she paused once more, he did so again. She turned to him and motioned him away, but he stood resolute. As if to say, do you really think that will work? And she sighed and continued on walking with her new-found companion in tow. She was caught up in thinking of how she was going to explain this. Okay, I don't really think this would work in real life, and I don't think any of you children should just go up to any wild animal or injured animal and start petting it. You might end up hurt or worse. This is a warning, but if an animal is hurt or sick, notify your local law enforcement, and they will figure out the best course of action. She walked into camp. No one had yet noticed her new four-legged shadow, but she didn't want to take the chance of him being hurt. His look screamed wolf and kill on sight, so she continued on quickly to her tent and started to pack. She then found an old headband she used to wear that had a scratch on the top. She shrugged and whistled for the wolf. He walked up to her and made no fuss when she put it around his neck. He actually seemed to swell in pride. She stood with satisfaction. He looked less dangerous now. She continued to pack. Just then Ino walked in. She saw the wolf and screamed. Hinata quickly covered her mouth. She pushed Ino out of her tent so that she could explain. But she wasn't quick enough. Shikamaru, and Chuji, who had a broken arm and many bruises on his face, came up. Ino, what's wrong? Hinata, who still covering the struggling blonde's mouth, spoke. It's nothing, she just won't calm down so I can explain. Shikamaru quirked an eyebrow at her. Explain what? Then the dog stepped out. Hinata smiled sweetly. My new friend I found. Shikamaru looked at the wolf, then to Choji, then back to her. Hinata, damn, this is troublesome. Hinata let go of Ino. Ino staggered back. Why on earth? Do you have that wild animal? Hinata looked at him. He's not wild, look how calm and nice he is. Ino looked at the wolf again, then back to her. Yeah, but still, what if he has rabies or something like that? Why is he wearing a Konoha symbol? Are you going to train him like Akamaru? You're a Hyuga. You don't train animals. One question after another the blonde bombarded her. I don't think he has rabies. I know what a dog looks like with rabies, and he's wearing that so no one tries to hurt him, she added after a brief pause. I might train him, and it doesn't mean a goddamn thing if I am a Hyuga. I can have a pet if I want. All of them stood shocked at her use of a swear word. Fine then, what's his name? Said Ino, getting over the shock. Hinata folded her arms. Fluffy. I am naming him Fluffy. Fluffy seemed to choke and whine for a second. I mean, imagine what Naruto would feel like when a person just blurts out, his new name is Fluffy, but then sat down and looked up at them. Watching Hinata out of the corner of his eye, Shikamaru and the others looked at each other, but Ino finally shrugged. Okay then, Fluffy is your new pet, fine whatever, she said, walking away. Shikamaru then added, all of us are having breakfast at Kakashi's camp. We are going to have a small memoriam for Naruto. Fluffy perked his ears up at Shikamaru, staring with an attentive gaze that made Shikamaru shudder. It was so unnerving. His blue wolf eyes watched him like a hawk and had a look of mystery and intelligence behind them. Hinata seemed to stiffen but nodded, her voice growing soft as her eyes seemed to wander unknown memories. Why yes, I'll be there as soon as I finish packing up. Shikamaru frowned. Listen, Hinata, I know this is weird and hard. I mean, even I am having some trouble getting used to this. It's like too quiet, without Naruto around, and everything has become so distant. Naruto was like the glue that held us together. Shikamaru paused. With Naruto everything was carefree and relaxed with him. You could be super sad or angry and Naruto would just say or do something and he had you thinking about the bright side of life. That was Naruto's gift. But you and everyone needs to know we are still ninjas. And this peace probably won't last. Something will happen and we'll be back to being enemies again. Maybe not with Suna, he said casually, shrugging. But with others, so we have to do our jobs. You need to learn that not all of us are going to make it, and that when one doesn't return you need to fill in that place and not be lost like you are. It will cause others to die. And with that Shikamaru turned and walked away, his hands in his pockets. Hinata shook her head, stopping the flood of tears. She bent to the ground and looked at Fluffy. Shikamaru's right. I need to be stronger, not just physically but mentally and emotionally. I have always been a pushover, controlled by my clan and my father. I must get stronger. You'll help me, right? Fluffy the wolf looked at her, compassion and resolve in his eyes. Once again Hinata felt as though this wolf had something inside of him, something strong and great. With those eyes that spoke of wisdom and understanding, she knew that Fluffy would be a strong base for her to lean on when times were hard. Hinata and Fluffy walked to Kakashi's camp. Kakashi had gotten over his shock, but he still looked quite sad, although he was pulling himself together, absorbing what strength he could from Guy and the others. It was like they were slowly adding kindle to his will of fire. All of them turned when she walked up with Fluffy by her side. Sakura and the others cocked an eyebrow, but it was Kiba who walked up to her. He said not a word but bent down and grabbed Fluffy gruffly. He pulled back his lids to look at the eyes, he checked the gums, and a few other things before standing up and saying, perfectly healthy. But to what he is exactly I can't tell. He looks wolf, but something about him. Wait a second. He then grabbed Fluffy's tail and looked at the tip. He then seemed to study him more intently. Then he backed away. Holy shit, he said. Hinata looked at him worried. What is it? Is there something wrong? He's part fox, Hinata gasped. You mean he's a wolf fox? Kiba nodded. Maybe a lone male wolf came across a female fox in heat, but it's really rare for it to happen, but not unheard of. She looked down at Fluffy. Is that bad? Kiba scratched his head. Well, some people believe when you mix breed wild animals something gets messed up, and sometimes they don't develop right. So he might look right on the outside but he might be bad on the inside, or his behavior got messed up. Hinata looked at Fluffy. But he's okay to keep. Kiba rubbed his chin. He didn't really want to disappoint her. You would have to have my sis check him out then. We'll see, but until then just watch him. Fluffy watched Kiba, a cool studying look as though he was thinking or planning something. But Kiba let that go. Even Akamaru never thought farther than what was in his stomach. The only dog he ever known to think like that was Kurama, his mother's familiar, who had the ability to talk. Kiba shrugged it off. Just then Akamaru stalked up. He growled low at Fluffy. Fluffy glanced at him and flicked an ear in indifference. Akamaru let out a loud growl. Kiba gave him a command of stand down. But Akamaru ignored it. Kiba gave it once more and reached for his collar, but it was too late. Akamaru sprung. Hinata gasped and leapt away, her body acting on instinct. Fluffy stood braced and ready, yet still had a look of calmness around him. Naruto waited until Akamaru was in mid-air, then dashed underneath the barreling brute. Akamaru landed where he used to be, Surprised at not landing on his target, Akamaru turned around as fast as his massive size would let him. Ignoring Kiba's commands, pure hate came from him. Naruto simply waited. He knew enough that in fights where one is fueled by rage, that person would run out of energy first. He grinned, knowing to attack just when they are at their weakest. Naruto backed up, leading Akamaru towards the fire that lay behind him, hidden from Akamaru's view. Naruto stopped. Judging that the distance was accurate enough, Akamaru charged him. Like being in a bullfight, Naruto stepped aside at the last moment, letting the dog slip by him and slide his great ugly nose into the fire. The dog let out a howl of pain and jumped away from the fire. Everyone just moved into the trees, seeing how it was a fight between them two. Hinata hoped Fluffy would be alright. Akamaru glanced over at Naruto, growling as loud as he possibly could, then ran to him, teeth bared and eyes burning and raged. Naruto dodged the wicked fangs and the huge dog for a few moments. But Akamaru got a lucky swat with his front paw and sent Naruto into the air. Naruto was ready and caught himself and landed on his feet, his hind legs touching a tree. Naruto smirked slightly. This was too good to be true, cause already the dog was barreling down on him. Naruto stood patiently waiting, then at the last moment he flipped backwards and pushed himself off the tree just above the colliding body. He then jumped forward and landed as Akamaru was picking himself up. Akamaru groggily got to his feet and turned towards him. He barely stood on his feet but charged forward once more. Naruto got bored of this game, and charging a small sliver of chakra into his paw, he hit Akamaru against the ear, making the dog crash to the ground in a heap. This time he didn't get back up. Naruto just smirked and trotted happily over to Hinata, who was getting down from the tree she had stood in. She bent down and hugged him. "Good boy, Fluffy. I am so proud of you." Kiba apologized to everyone and then grabbed Akamaru by the scruff of his neck. Akamaru moaned and whimpered, "You are in big trouble, little mister." Sakura looked at Kiba. "Little?" she said. Kiba shrugged. "Yeah, he's a pup to me still." Everyone grimaced. "I don't see it," Shikamaru said, turning to Hinata. "He's a pretty good fighter, that Fluffy, or Kiba is just a bad trainer." Kiba glowered. Hinata smiled and laughed. "I do believe it is both, Shikamaru." Everyone chuckled at Kiba's embarrassment. "That's not funny," Kiba interjected. "Besides, he didn't fight. He just stood in front of things and dodged out of the way so that Akamaru ran into things." "It wasn't fair," Kiba proclaimed, coming to Akamaru's defense. Kakashi placed a hand on Kiba's shoulder, silencing him. "Kiba, nothing is ever fair, not fights, or wars, or even peace, because life in itself is not fair." The small smile on everyone's face fell softly. Sakura then piped up, "We built a small shrine to say goodbye to Naruto in the tent. It's big enough for us all. We'll say a small prayer, then have breakfast, ramen, in remembrance of Naruto." Naruto's stomach growled at that, but luckily no one heard. They all walked into the tent. At the far side of it was a small wooden table erected with a picture of Naruto. Naruto recognized it. It was the picture they took of him after the last war meeting was over in Konoha. They were goofing off with a camera and took a picture of him. In it his arms were folded over his chest as two birds perched on both of his shoulders. He smiled at the memory. It was when he was showing off his sage powers. In the picture he smiled deeply, almost laughing in a way. His eyes were bright and shining. He looked so strong yet graceful in a way, so calm and happy. They bowed and went over the ritual prayers for death. Then Kakashi got up. "Naruto, I don't know if you can hear me or any of us, but we are here to say goodbye formally. You were kind and thoughtful, yet strong and a little stubborn some of the time." There was a pause. "Okay, most of the time. But all of this made you. No one could say you never gave it your all, 'cause that is what you always did. You would turn the impossible into possible, and sometimes small things like teaching a simple jutsu that was possible to others, impossible to you." There was a small round of light laughter from everyone. Kakashi sighed. "I remember all the times you annoyed me to no end, blabbering away with that trademark loud voice. I thought it would be a relief if I could no longer hear it. But sadly I was mistaken. Now there is a heavy silence where you once filled with laughter and noise." A few of them had tears in the corners of their eyes, even some of the guys. Kiba whipped away his quickly. He glanced to Hinata, who cried silently. Kiba reached a hand out and held hers, giving her some comfort. He knew how hard it was on her. Hinata looked up to him. She glanced at him, tears trailing down her cheeks. She looked so innocent and graceful when she cried. She smiled and mouthed the word thanks to him. Kiba glanced away, unsure of what to say, so he continued holding her hand. Kakashi continued, "I just want you to know that even though you are no longer with us, and that the days will go by turning into weeks and years, yet no matter what, you will always be in our hearts and our minds. It is where you have always been, even if you didn't know it." Naruto sat dumbfounded and shocked. He quickly wiped a tear from his eye before anyone saw. "Kakashi, I wish I could speak, because then I would tell you, you are not alone and that I finally realized you were right. But even if I could, I can't, not yet. There is something that I must do to keep all of you safe. I am doing all of this for you." And with that, Naruto slowly slipped out of the tent, leaving them to conduct the ceremony by themselves. Fate was on his side, because just then he saw 4-Umbu walk by guarding a person that made his blood go cold, and his heart skip a beat. There he was, the one who had killed him, his murderer, the one now moving his sights unto his own home. "Uchiha Sasuke," Naruto growled low after they passed, and then followed them quietly. Sasuke entered through the tent flap. The Umbu stood on either sides of him. Danzo stood by a lightweight traveling desk, his hands folded behind his back. Danzo nodded to the Umbu guards who took the signal and left them, so it was just Danzo and Sasuke in the tent. Danzo studied him for a bit, then said, "Uchiha Sasuke, what can I do for you?" Sasuke said, "Nothing, I want to go back to Konoha." The Hokage looked at him and smirked. "I know that. But why?" Sasuke smirked, "I wish to see all my friends again and right the wrongs I did." Danzo smirked, "Do you really think I am stupid? I know you know the truth. Now, out with it, what is your real reason?" He said, moving towards his desk. "You want to finish your revenge, right?" Sasuke frowned. "Yes," he said, answering the Hokage. Danzo smirked again. "Good, just as I thought. But tell me, what kind of destruction did you have in mind?" Danzo said, sitting down, tenting his fingertips. Sasuke was taken aback by the bluntness. Danzo continued, "You may be smart, boy, but you're not smart enough." Danzo reached for a brush and marked something randomly before getting back to him. Sasuke was unnerved at how relaxed this man was, so free, talking about destruction and rebelling as if he had been planning one for years. Danzo turned to him. "You know what is your problem?" Danzo said. Sasuke remained silent. "You don't think things through enough. What was your plan? Get in Konoha, then take the entire ninja force on single-handedly? You and I both know you're strong, but not that strong." Sasuke frowned once more, then ran his hand through his hair. "Why are you telling me this?" Danzo smirked. "Because Lady Tsunade has awoken and reclaimed her right as Hokage, so when I reach Konoha I will step down." Sasuke quirked an eyebrow. "Why?" Danzo grinned. "Like I said before, you need to think things through more." Danzo took a sip of tea. "Think of it, if I step down and stay under the radar, not cause any trouble, move my pawn silently." He paused before turning glowing eyes to Sasuke. "I can strike quickly, then gain the Hokageship." Danzo said, grinning greedily. Permanently this time. Sasuke shivered. This man, he was truly power-hungry. Sasuke, however, feigned ignorance, and spoke, pointing out a flaw in his plan. "But to do that, Tsunade would have to be put out of the picture." Danzo rose. "That is why you are here. Child, why do you think you haven't been killed yet?" Sasuke was silent. "What is your plan?" Danzo grinned. "How exactly do you want to destroy Konoha?" Sasuke was silent. Danzo continued. "Instead of the physical part of it, why not the spiritual part? The essence, the part that has stayed alive for so long, the part that compelled you, brother, to do what he had to do." Sasuke stared darkly at Danzo for a second. "We must destroy the will of fire, make the ninja obey us and fight for us, not some dumb will the third gave to them, and we make the people of the village completely dependent on us. In other words, we rule Konoha." Sasuke looked at Danzo. "We?" he asked. Danzo smirked. "Help me, Sasuke, and I can wipe your slate clean, and I can give you everything: money, women, power, and someday when I am too old, you could take up the Hokageship and run the village however you please." Sasuke's eyes glinted at the thought. Sasuke swallowed in anticipation. "So what do I have to do?" Danzo grinned. "Now is opportune moment. Naruto is dead thanks to the Akatsuki." Danzo winked as if he knew something. "Could he possibly know that I?" Sasuke thought for a second. "The will of fire is already waning in some of the ninja ranks." Danzo continued. "Naruto was their hope. Now he's gone, so they will turn to Tsunade, and when she is gone, they will have no one, and thus turn to us." Sasuke got the hint. "So we are going to dispose of her?" Danzo nodded. "That in fact will be your job." Sasuke was puzzled. "That way if you fail, I can sever my bonds to you, and save my hide. You know how it is, we look for ourselves first. I did not plan this for an entire lifetime to have some brat with a shaky sword arm destroy it." Sasuke smirked. "I killed my sensei, and my older brother, the old windbag, will be easy." Danzo shook his head. "No, we have to do it quietly, poison maybe, or even suffocating her in her sleep. Something that will look like an accident or natural. Something that cannot lead to you or me. So I want you to lay low the first month. We'll bide our time, get everyone used to your presence, then we will start with the operation." Sasuke nodded. "Very well." Danzo grinned. "I am glad you are on our side, Uchiha Sasuke. Konoha will be glad to have one of such a high pedigree back." Danzo then walked to the tent flap and looked around, then he gave a whistle and the Umbu came in and took Sasuke. "He is back to being a reinstated ninja, but you will still be under surveillance, Sasuke, only at a more relaxed distance." Naruto sneaked away. After he heard Danzo head for the tent flap, he quickly hid himself in the bushes, hiding himself and his chakra signature. Then he hurriedly ran back to Kakashi's camp. "So Sasuke is in league with Danzo now. I am going to have to keep a tab on both of them," he thought to himself. "Also I better make sure Tsunade does not have any mishaps," Naruto thought as he headed through the trees. Hinata stood worriedly looking around. "Fluffy. There you are," she exclaimed. Naruto died a bit on the inside. "Fluffy. Why did you have to give me such an embarrassing name?" Naruto sighed and trotted over to her, thinking like a dog would, so he stuck his tongue out and panted while wagging his tail. Hinata smiled. Her smile looked better on her than the look of loss and sadness she once wore. Already Naruto could see that the fire in her was burning brighter than it was back when he was alive. "Good, you need to be strong and have faith for what is to come." He looked around the camp at all the rookie nine, at all his old friends. "All of you do, there is a storm brewing." But Naruto hardened his gaze. "But this time I will not leave you. I will protect all of you. I need to be a better Naruto than I was. Father, if you're up there, help guide me. I need to plan everything perfect. And right now I need to figure out how to use jutsus with this body." They traveled all day. Naruto stuck next to Hinata the whole time. He ignored the glances from the other clan members, and so did Hinata. She proudly walked, her head held high, a look of challenge in her eyes. Neji sometimes came back and walked by them. He talked to her a few times, and told her what the others were saying about her new pet. They say your father will make you get rid of it. Hinata rolled her eyes. That is Fluffy, and I am keeping him, regardless of what father says. Neji shook his head. Hinata, you of all people know what your father is like. Hinata nodded. I know, but he has to grant me this one thing at least. He owes me a lot. Neji shook his head once more. No, he's a kind of person who feels they don't owe anyone anything. Hinata, you better watch yourself. He might not take too kindly to this, even if you are his daughter. Neji then headed back to the front of the second branch of the Hyuga. Hinata looked down at him. We're going to stick together, right, Fluffy? Naruto barked and wagged his tail. Hinata smiled to Naruto. It may be a little degrading to act this way, but he did have to keep up the guise that he was a normal, or somewhat normal dog, for all intensive purposes. Plus anything to make her happy and smile. Naruto sighed on the inside. Why is it that he would make a fool of himself or pain himself all to make others happy? Naruto flicked his ear in annoyance. It didn't matter right now. He had to worry about bigger things. Because a cheer rose up from the ninja as Konoha came into view. Everyone had filed through the main gate. The supply wagons and injured had already been taken to the hospital. Surprisingly, Tsunade was standing with Shizen holding Tuntun, and the two village elders were standing next to them. Danzo made his way to her, then bowed respectfully. She nodded to him and took her Hokage hat from him that he held out in his arms. Then he spoke something in her ear. She looked taken aback, but just nodded, and Danzo and his guard left. Sakura walked up to her next. She looked at the ground and bit on her lower lip, unable to bring herself to look in her old mentor's eyes. Finally she got the courage. Lady Tsunade, Naruto, he stopped the war and saved all our lives. He was a true hero. That was all she said. Tsunade was silent for a moment, then she looked away, her eyes cast downward. I understand. Then she reached out and pulled Sakura in a tight hug. The sensei and student split and looked at each other. You could see small ovals of moisture at the edges of Tsunade's eyes. She scanned the faces all gathered. We will serve a memorial for all of those fallen in 7 days' time. All of their names will be engraved on the hero's stone. The service will be held in the Chunin Stadium. Tsunade looked around at them. I am proud of all of you. You all have fought so valiantly and bravely. Some of you have never had the experience of war, she said, looking down sadly, then back up, and some of you have dealt with that grim experience already. She drifted off as she remembered her younger days of war and bloodshed. She looked back up to all the faces looking to her for guidance and hope. She looked to Sakura next to her. Sakura squeezed her arm in comfort. Tsunade smiled softly as her tears that had hovered in her eyes began to roll softly down her face. Every one of you should be proud of yourselves. And what have you accomplished? She spoke louder. This right now tells me that the will of fire which my grandfather the third Hokage endowed in you is strong, and will hopefully be burning brightly in all of your hearts for generations to come. All the ninja applauded her. Tsunade stood silently as the applause washed over her. She felt both empowered and weak at the same time. Empowered because the hope and strength her ninja gave her, but then will because there was one ninja that was not here, the one she held dearly to her heart more than some of the others. She continued to cry but wiped them away and shook hands with her warriors, giving them strength and wishing them luck. The ninja then started to break away and go wherever they needed to go. The rookie 9 got together at the edge and traveled down the newly finished back alleyway, headed towards Ichiroku Ramen, when just then Hirashi Hyuga graced their precincts. He came around the corner, a few followers of the main branch behind him. Hinata, he yelled in a commanding voice, what is this I hear of you adopting some mongrel half-wild mutt? Naruto moved closer to her side, bracing himself, not sure of what was going to happen next. Hinata, surprising everyone there, did something that wasn't her. Instead of looking down or away like she always did, she called upon an inner fire that had laid dormant within her all her life, only now just mustering within her to challenge the absolute authority her father wields. She stuck her head up high, her body straight, giving her a calm, strong look. Her eyes showed defiance and challenge, a light never before seen in her eyes. Before she was afraid and timid, but now, those days were over with Fluffy at her side. She would show them how strong she really was. Kiba saw this change in her, and his heart for a moment skipped a beat. There was something new about her. She glowed differently than before. He had never seen her in this way before, and he liked it. You hear falsely, father. I have adopted a great and magnificent beast, my new companion and friend, she said, looking to Fluffy. He is not half wild mutt. Whoever said that is mistaken and half-witted to think this creature next to me is a wild animal. Hirashi's jaw dropped slightly, taken aback that she had spoken without taking her eyes from his and without a stutter. Then a look of certain authority took over Hyuga. Hinata, I am your father. I command you to get rid of that beast now. Hinata looked down her nose at her father. I am not a little girl anymore, father. I can make my own decisions. You can't control me anymore, and I choose to keep him. You being my father does not change my mind. Hirashi once again found himself dumbfounded within the same minute. He kept standing there pointing towards the large mongrel beast. He slowly lowered his arm and fisted his hand until his knuckles turned white. Hirashi was outraged at this. You will pay for your disobedience, girl. He spat as he swiftly approached her. Hinata gasped and started to back away, bringing an arm up to block the coming blow, but was too late. The sickening sound of skin slapping skin broke through the air, and Hinata was on the ground clutching a red cheek that undoubtedly would bruise, before Hirashi could hit her once more. A whitish blur came in between her Hirashi and his disobedient daughter. The creature barked and snapped at him, its fur bristling. Hirashi smirked and struck. The creature whimpered and fell to the ground in a heap. Hirashi laughed at its pathetic form. Hirashi looked down at his miserable excuse for a daughter. She stood behind the form of her failed protector, her hand clutching her jaw as she looked up to Hirashi. You must choose my daughter, he said, glaring down at her, this pathetic beast in a life disowned from the Hyuga, or kill this beast right here and now, and claim you right to be my heir. Hinata sat confused, then a certain malice, a cold hate filled her eyes, an emotion that shocked even him, something he had never seen before. Hinata calmly stood up. I would rather die with this beast and no name than to be your caged heir. She slowly got up. The mutt moaned and turned his head towards her. Hinata spoke once more. Mother was right to tell me to get away as soon as I can. How come I couldn't see until now? Why did it take a war and the loss of someone dear to me to see this? Hinata said softly. Hinata looked back up at her father, the one she had always tried to impress, the one she had trusted and adored, her only living parent. Because her mother. You want to know why mother killed herself after Hinabi was born, father? Everyone gasped. Few knew about how the lady of the Hyuga clan had died. Most thought it was from something that happened during childbirth, but she had suffered for 3 years before succumbing to it. Even those in the main branch did not know the secret of how the mistress had died. Hirashi has had it covered all these years. But brave Hinata spoke, the truth unveiled by the words that slipped from her tongue. Hirashi was shocked once more, that she would speak of such things. Plus he had always wondered how his wife, whom he admittedly treated more like an exotic bird, had escaped from her cage. Hinata then moved closer to her father because she would have rather been dead to spend another second with you. She hissed the last part with venom. She hated you, father, and it only took me until now to realize that I hate you as well. She adjusted her shoulder and spoke. I sever my bonds with you. She turned away from him. Make Hinabi your little singing bird, cause this one is not singing for you anymore. Hinata spat the last part out, emphasizing it. Hirashi twinged slightly, then his face started to turn an angry purple as he contained the fury within him. Instead of hitting her once more, he jutted a finger at her. You miserable wench. I give you everything you ever wanted, and this is how you pay me? Fine then, live on the streets. Be without a name. If you really detest me that much, just leave. We'll see how far you survive without the Hyuga name. Before Hinata could say anything more, a growling filled the air. A deep, low, ferocious growling that sent chills down everyone's spine as the animal at Hinata's feet staggered up and stood. Then it looked up at Hirashi and bared its fangs as much as it could. Its fur stood straight as an arrow. Hirashi gasped. The animal's eyes were in complete fiery fury, as though it was looking into his very soul. On top of that, he was scared at the fact that it stood when he knew it shouldn't have. Hirashi backed away. The animal stepped towards him staggeringly. It continued to growl at him, looking ready to pounce. The pure fear the beast caused from its looks and growls, and the fact that it had stood after such a blow. It followed Hirashi with its eyes, and the beast made one motion to Hirashi no one saw. It tilted its head to the side and winked. Hirashi thought he had lost his mind for a moment, because this couldn't have happened, but the beast jumped and barked menacingly enough to make him Hirashi Hyuga jump and scuttle over to his followers. He turned and said, you are not allowed on Hyuga grounds until you get rid of that beast and are ready to apologize, then scampered away like a dog with his tail in between his legs. Hinata smirked, then twirled and jumped around. I'm free. Finally. Free. I never have to sit through a stupid clan meeting. Or attend those boring old parties my father throws. She then stopped and looked at Fluffy and jumped to sit on her knees in the street beside him. I can't believe what you did, Fluffy. You were amazing. His aim must have been off for you to be able to stand still. You stood and fought for me. You're the best guard dog I know. She hugged him and kissed his forehead, then laughed and giggled as Fluffy barked and wagged his tail and nudged his nose to her cheek in affection. It's okay, boy. The scars that really matter are now healed. Fluffy barked once more. Hinata turned to the rest, who were stunned. They had did nothing throughout the entire ordeal, not because they didn't want to, but for fear of getting their clans in trouble if they did. Come on guys, let's go to Ichiroka Ramen, she said happily and excitedly, then ran off giggling with Fluffy bounding at her heels barking for joy as well. They all looked at each other. Is it me Kiba started and Sakura finished, or is it she is becoming like Naruto? All of them looked at each other. Maybe that Fluffy has something to do with it. Kiba said. Sakura snorted. Come on, it's just an animal. It has nothing to do with Naruto, she said, and started walking after Hinata. Last won their pace. She yelled, then booked off at a dead run that got everyone into high gear. Hinata was already slurping her way into a bowl with Fluffy at her side, lapping up ramen as well. Hinata. Kiba yelled, dogs are not supposed to have ramen. It's bad for them. Hinata looked down. Oh, but he earned it, plus one bowl won't hurt. Kiba shook his head. If you really want to keep him, you are going to have to learn how to take care of such a high maintenance animal. You have to feed him and comb him, give him baths, have vet checkups, brush his teeth, deworm him, all this stuff. And what are you going to do when you go on missions? Hinata looked down sadly. I thought I was going to take him with. He can do a lot of stuff. She trailed away, then turned to him, begging with her eyes. You have seen for yourself, Kiba, she exclaimed. He's a very intelligent animal, and strong and very protective of me. Kiba shook his head. He sat down. Do you know how much time and effort it takes to train a dog like Akamaru and our clan's dogs? It takes a lifetime. You start from a pup and bond with him, becoming like littermates. You can't just adopt any old dog and take him in. It has taken generations of breeding to finally get dogs that can use some chakra from their owners like me and Akamaru. You have to be able to give him chakra to fight, and you have to be compatible. Hinata looked away and sighed. All of them said nothing. Then I am the granddaughter of the owner said, wiping her forehead. Hey, where is Naruto? He usually has 10 bowls by now. All of them said nothing for a few moments. Then Sakura said, Naruto is eating ramen with the third Hokage and all the others who have left this world. Iam's jaw dropped. She wiped away tears, then went into the back for a few moments. Her and her grandfather walked to the counter. He yelled out to the other helpers to take a break. When all had left, he turned to them, his face no longer smiling. He sat heavily against the counter. So, Naruto's recklessness has truly caught up with him. Sakura shook her head. No, he was a hero. He took his recklessness and turned it into a trump card to save us all. Shikamaru nodded. Yeah. Without his sacrifice we would not be here. We would probably be all dead or still at war. The man smirked. Like father, like son, he said under his breath. That got everyone's attention. Even Fluffy beneath the stool flicked his ears forward. Kiba looked confused. Wait, you knew Naruto's father? The man nodded. Yes, even you do. Everyone does. Although you might not have known his mother, Uzumaki Kushina. The man smiled at the mention, seeming to go back in memories. Came here as a wee little girl. Her hair was like fire. And so was her attitude. She let no one mess around with her, he said, chuckling. Taking on people twice her size, or people who outnumbered her, she had no fear. He grinned, but she had a soft side. She didn't like seeing those who could not defend themselves get picked on. He turned to them. I bet you can guess which parent Naruto took after Sakura. And the others looked at each other. How come we never heard of any of this? The man's face darkened. There was a decree by the third. No one supposed to know of Naruto's lineage. If they knew, the boy would have had kidnapping attempts every night. And on top of the Uzumaki lineage, he had another very important bloodline. Everyone squished together more. What was Naruto's lineage? The man scratched his neck. Well, since he's in the hereafter, I can say, Naruto has 2 great bloodlines in his tree. The infamous Uzumaki clan, masters of jutsu from the whirlpool. He said, pointing to a map nearby. All of them, most of them, were wiped out though, in the Second War. He added, Kushina was one of the few survivors. You see, Uzumaki had long lifespans. They could easily live into the hundreds, and still be able to walk, talk, and do everything. And they had a huge chakra supply, equaled only by spirits and demons. He paused. Then there's his father. The man paused, then turned to a drawer beside him. He took out a box wrapped in fabric. He blew dust from it, and unwrapped it. Slowly he pulled out what looked to be a picture frame. The people who stood in it smiling were a man and a woman. One looked exactly as the man had described, wild red hair, and smiling a very familiar smile. She rested a hand on a pregnant belly. The man standing next to her was also equally familiar. He had blonde hair and neat spikes, nice angled features, with a jutting handsome chin. His skin was smooth and tan, and he had very fine bright blue eyes that sparkled. The man was familiar because he was Namiké's Minato, the 4th Hokage, aka the Yellow Flash. There was a gasp throughout the group. He was the 4th Hokage's son. The man nodded. Yep, Namikaze, I guess, is somehow related far up the family tree, to the Senju clan, which is the 1st Hokage. And ironically, his younger brother, the 2nd Hokage, had a wife who was also the holder of the Nine Tails. She was Uzumaki as well. When she was old, they brought Kushina to seal the Nine Tails in. You see, for controlling and sealing the great-tailed beasts. The younger the better. The man waved his hand and placed the picture back in the drawer. Then after that is history. Kushina was Minato's protector in academy. The boy was shy, you know. They giggled and shook heads, not being able to see the 4th Hokage being like that. Well, they ended up staying together after that as friends. The man spoke, continuing the story. Then one day she got kidnapped, and he tracked them down and saved her. They declared their love for each other. She taught him all her secrets of jutsu. He became Hokage. They got married. Then a second later she was pregnant. Boy, that man was so happy when he heard he was going to be a father. Even had his sensei named the kid. Who knew he would be eating ramen when he thought of it? The man chuckled. All of them stared dumbfoundedly. I never knew any of this about Naruto. Then what happened on the day of the attack? Shikamaru said. The man sighed. Kushina went into labor. It's hard for holders, I guess. Something about the seal makes being pregnant even tougher. On top of being pregnant for another month than usual. Sakura shook her head in dismay. You mean her term was 10 months instead of 9? He nodded. Yeah. Anyway, they went to a secluded place in case anything went wrong. And I am guessing it did. Even I don't know what happened. The third kept the secret to his grave. All I know is the Kyuubi got out, and Minato gave his life up to seal the Kyuubi in Naruto. The man stopped shaking his head. Then had the third kept Naruto's lineage and everything a secret to protect him, until he was ready for the truth. The man finished with a heavy sigh. Fluffy rested his head on his paws and sighed as well. Kiba rose, placing money on the table. Well, I guess now we know who knew Naruto had such a badass history and lineage. I mean, would he have been different if the Kyuubi had not escaped? Would we all have been friends still? Or would he be a snooty prick because of who his father is? The man shook his head. No, Kushina would have saw to that. Anyway, you shouldn't think of what could have been. You should think on what has been, and what will be, he said as he collected their bowls and their money. They all left and headed out to their homes. Sakura had asked if Hinata wanted to stay over, but Hinata told her she would find a hotel for the night. She needed to be alone for a bit. She sighed and walked next to Fluffy in silence. Let's go to the park, she said, and headed in the direction. Naruto looked up to see storm clouds rolling in. This is not good, he thought to himself. Hinata pulled her jacket closer around her. The wind had picked up. Maybe I should go get a hotel room now, she thought, then realized something terrible. Oh no, I don't have my money with me. It's in my baggage, which is in my rolled up in my tent bag, which is in the Hyuga compound now, she thought dryly. Instead, Hinata sat down on a cold stone park bench. It was freezing, she shivered. Fluffy whined and scooted closer to her. She was glad for the warmth his fur gave and buried her numb fingers in his fur, relishing in the burning feeling from her nerves being awoken once more. It got darker and colder, and soon it started to rain. She got up and hurried to the tunnel of a stone bridge. She huddled next to the wall, curling herself in a ball. Her head throbbed and she felt chilled to the bone. Fluffy curled himself as tight as he could next to her, trying to warm her, but she still felt cold and wet. Soon she felt dizzy and weak. She crumpled all the way to the ground and closed her eyes and went into a fevered sleep. Naruto saw Hinata close her eyes. As her body convulsed into shivers, her skin was a sickly pale blue. Naruto swore and tried to shake her awake, but to no avail, so he quickly eased himself down and shifted Hinata's limp form onto his back, balancing it. He staggered under the weight at first, but he knew he had to get her to warmth and safety. Going through the mental map in his head, he knew Kiba's clan was the closest. Naruto took off and went as fast as he dared to. Rain pelted his fur, drenching him, but his second layer of fur kept him warm and surprisingly dry in a way. Finally he could see the clan gates ahead. He didn't see a sentry or guard and he couldn't really knock, so he did the only thing he thought of doing. He howled for help. He threw his head back and tried to convey that something was wrong and he needed immediate help to come to him. It must have worked, cause suddenly he heard the sound of 3 dogs barking, and soon voices. The door opened and a female with brown hair and eyes with the red painted cheeks stepped outside. She gasped and rushed to Hinata. Naruto eased her down. The female caught her. The 3 dogs he heard earlier growled at him, but the women barked and said enough. He is our guest, no dog is to touch him. They whined and laid their ears back in submission and backed away. She looked at him. Dog, follow. He nodded and followed her as she rushed inside. 4 other figures streaked across the yard. It was Kiba and Akamaru, followed by a woman with wild hair and a dog wearing an eye patch. Hana! What is it? Kiba said, then gaped. What happened? Hana shrugged. The dog howled for help. I heard him and came. Kiba quirked an eyebrow. How did you know it was him? And some other dog in out pens who dropped a bone. She shrugged once more. He sounded different, desperate, urgent. He had a sort of plea in his voice. Totally different from any of our dogs. Kiba nodded. Fine, but we have to bring her in. She's got a fever, no doubt. He turned. Is that okay, mother? Some nodded. But what of her mutt? Then to Naruto's surprise her dog stepped up and said, I'll take him to a place where none of the others will mess with him. The young ones won't always pick fights with strangers' dogs. Some nodded once more. Very well, Kuramaru. The large dog stepped up to him. He studied him with one eye. He made small noises, but Naruto understood them. You follow me? Naruto looked at him and nodded. Kuramaru led him out of the rain to a small place that looked like a storage shed. He opened the door easily. Naruto watched how he did so that he would be able to open doors later, then stepped inside. There was a small bed on the floor. Kuramaru motioned to him. You rest here, he said once more using the strange animal tongue. Naruto turned to him. What of Hinata? When will I see her again? Kuramaru seemed to jump in surprise. What the? How can dash? Kuramaru stared at him. You are speaking at my level of expertise. Most dogs I know can say simple words. Me, I, we, pack, food, attack, dodge, bed, and cat, he said, naming examples. Naruto shrugged. I am not a dog. My father was a wolf, and my mother was a fox. Kuramaru looked him up and down, then said, keep that fox part to yourself. If others heard, they will try and kill you. We detest foxes, even if you half-breed. Naruto flicked an ear. My name is Fluffy. Kuramaru barked in amusement. What name? No. What is name your mother gave, not the human one given? Naruto shrugged. I don't remember. Kuramaru shook his head, then looked at him in disdain. You are the strangest canine I ever did see. Half wolf, half fox, no true name, and to top it off has intelligence compared to mine. Incredible, even my own pups didn't get that. Kuramaru paused. I mean, look at Akamaru, he only cares of food. I don't want to mention the others. It's too disgraceful. He shook his head. Naruto quirked an ear. You still didn't answer my question. Kuramaru shot his head up. Right, sorry, lost I get sometimes. Human Hinata will be given a bath and food, then a rest, and morning maybe. You can see her. Naruto nodded. Thank you. Kuramaru. The dog sniffed at him. You sure you are canine? Naruto shrugged and went to the pillow. One more thing, Kuramaru. Kuramaru looked at him. Yes? How is it you speak so the humans can understand you? Kuramaru swelled his chest in pride. It took a lot of work, but find I did. A way to speak to me human. Naruto looked at him. Is it teachable? Kuramaru looked shocked once more. He stepped closer to him. Why? To what end would be of use to speak to human for you? Naruto stood. Because I want to help Hinata. I am all she has now. I need to be able to speak to her. Because he trailed off, then remembered Sasuke. Lightning struck outside, the sky shaking as if a god had pounded his fists upon it. Kuramaru jumped at the sound. Naruto spoke to the startled Kuramaru. A bigger storm is coming, and this storm is like nothing Konoha has ever seen. Kuramaru just stared at him. Tell you I will, show you I can, but you alone can learn, on own way. Smart to me you seem. I believe you can figure out. Kurama walked to the door, then turned back to him. Stay here you will, and with humans to train you. Then storm you will survive through. Then Kurama walked out, and left Naruto alone to hear the sound of rain falling heavily against the roof. Naruto woke up the next morning and yawned. He stretched and shook himself awake as he pushed open the door to the outside world. As he looked outside he saw rain puddles scattered about. He turned his head and listened for noise. Everything was as it should be. Naruto sighed and trotted over to the main house. He found a sliding door and pushed it open. He then began to sniff the air, trying to pick up on Hinata's scent. It was weird going through someone else's home, but he couldn't help it. He had to find Hinata. He smelled a faint scent of her usual lily smell and followed his nose to her. He saw no one as he traveled through the house. Once more he came to a sliding door. He opened it up and saw Hinata on a futon bed. She had a wet towel wrapped over her forehead, and the female from last night, Hana he thought her name was sitting next to her. Hana's 3 dogs were nowhere to be seen. Hinata's coughing brought Naruto to attention. He walked over to her. Hana saw him then. Oh good boy, you found your master. She then patted his head gruffly. He sat down and looked at Hinata. She had more color to her, and she looked more at peace, but he could sense fever running through her. He nuzzled her arm, giving her comfort, hoping she would feel him there, and know someone was still there for her. Hana then stood and walked over to him. Wow, I can't believe it, Kiba was right. A wolf fox. How interesting, she said to herself as she looked him over. Naruto rolled his eyes. Really? Am I that interesting? Then he heard a weak voice croak out, Fluffy? Naruto and Hana both looked to awaken Hinata. Hana was wetting a towel and placing it on her head, saying that she should rest. But Hinata instead brought her arm up and put it around his neck. You saved me. Good boy. Then she fell back into her sleep. Naruto sighed and laid down. When his belly growled he looked up to Hana. She stared at him a bit, then she must have put 2 and 2 together. Oh silly me. Of course you're hungry. She left for a bit, then came back holding a metal dog bowl. She placed it in front of him. Naruto stared at it. What was in that bowl might have been a living creature at one time, but now it was canned and mashed up beyond recognition. Naruto sniffed it. It smelled weird. Then he hesitantly took a small bite because he knew he had to seem like a dog. Even though the human in him protested, he swallowed what little he got in his mouth and shivered slightly. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was like tofu. It has all the nutrients but no real taste to it. Naruto sighed but kept eating it bit by bit until she left. Then he stopped and pushed the dish away. Now he left Hinata for a bit to go find water to wash his mouth out. He followed the rooms of the house feeling as though he was in a maze. Naruto, who was used to his 1-bedroom apartment, was completely astounded by how much space these people had, and some rooms were completely barren of anything. It was such a waste. Did they really need that much? Then he heard a scratching and barking. Suddenly 4 dogs had come running up to him. They were not mean or hostile. They seemed to say the same thing over and over. New dog, let's play. Naruto, who had never really played before, not even as a human. Kids never wanted to play with him, so he spent most of his childhood days alone. Now these 4 strange dogs wanted to play with him. Suddenly one barked loudly and bent his front so his rear stuck in the air. His tongue lolled out of his mouth, and his tail wagged happily. He stayed like that as if waiting for something. Naruto looked at them confused. The dogs tilted their heads and whined. Another one, a female this time, did it. Naruto ended up backing away and trotting away from them. They just stared after him for a second, then ran off with each other. Tsum watched the new animal with much interest. Ever since it woke up she followed it around at a distance. This was quite a peculiar animal. It was guarded in its posture, always looking and watching, as though it was trying to figure something out. It seemed unsure of itself, which was only natural in a new place. But when the animal backed away from the inclination of playing, which any dog would do, even Kurama, this surprised her to no end. Instead the animal just went around the house, opening doors and looking at things. Once it had made a swing through all the first floor rooms, he must have decided that was enough, and trotted back to his master's side. Tsum then thought it was a very loyal and obedient animal. But when Kiba had told her last night Hinata had found the dog only few days ago, it was just downright unnatural. No dog would be that guarding and loyal after a day or two. Tsum, to say the least, was just puzzled. She decided to take a closer look at this animal. She walked into the room where Hinata slept. The dog looked up at her, watching her with eerily striking blue eyes that held much composure and intelligence. It seemed to ask, "Who are you?" When he cocked his head, "Well, Fluffy, how are you today? Hinata seems to be getting better. A couple more hours and she might have hypothermia. You saved her life. You're well trained." Tsum said. It was unnerving the way he had watched her, listened to her every word as if he understood them. But even more shocking was the fact he nodded his head as if to say, "Yes, I am." Tsum mulled her thoughts about for a bit, then said, "Fluffy, come." The dog stood up and came to her. "Sit." He sat. "Speak." He barked. "Roll over." He did so. The usual moves anyone teaches their dog. Then she smirked, thinking she would confuse the dog with a few commands of an Inazaka dog: jump and spin on the front. After a moment's hesitation she thought she had the dog. But the dog looked like he was concentrating. Then he easily jumped into the air, landed on his front paws, holding its back legs in the air. He balanced and spun once around on its front paws. Tsum stared, shocked. It had done it so gracefully and balanced, it seemed to act as though it was a veteran dog of hers. She closed her mouth. Jump and spin on backs. He did so with the same fluid grace. Now she was astounded. She yelled gruffly, "Kiba, get in here." Kiba then rushed in. "What is it, Ma?" he said somewhat sleepily. He wore his usual gray shirt and black pants, his face already painted. She turned to her son. Give this dog a command, she said, pointing to it. Kiba stared at her, then looked down at it and backward flipped the dog. After a little consideration, braced himself, then from a standing position flipped backwards and landed on its feet. A light was in its eyes, as if to say, is that the best you can do? Sim grinned. This dog was very interesting. Kiba, I am going to go test this dog, okay? If anyone needs anything, tell them. I'll get to it later. This dog is more important right now. Kiba nodded. Okay, what about Hinata? Sim looked over at her. Keep taking care of her, the poor girl. What kind of father would do that? I do not know. She can stay with us for a bit. Kiba nodded and Sim turned to the dog. Okay Fluffy, follow me. Naruto followed the Inazaka clan leader to an empty courtyard behind the main house. There was some sort of obstacle course built there. First there was a 12-foot high wall, followed by a set of various ladders, then a wide trench filled with water. Next 3 hoops. One had to jump through to get to the other side of that, which was 10 posts sticking up out of the ground from a giant hole in the ground that had a net strung across, so if a dog or person did miss a post they would not fall and break something, or die, which would be bad. Sim turned to the dog. Go to that line. The dog went to the line she pointed to. Stay until I blow this whistle. When the dog was situated, instead of sitting or looking around like any other dog would, it stood braced ready for her. Watching her from the corner of its eye, she blew the whistle. It took off like a speeding horse. It shot up from the ground and leaped most of the wall, then it propelled itself the last length by pushing its body off the wall, almost seeming to run on it. It landed on the very top. It studied the sets of ladders for a few seconds. Each ladder was set up a different way. Some led out to the middle of nothing and the dog would have to back up and find a new destination. But this animal was different. It almost instantly found the fastest and correct route. He dashed on to the next obstacle, which was a 9-foot wide trench. The dog seemed to fly across the surface of the water. But if Sim would have looked closer near the mid-flight of his jump, she would have noticed the dog placing all fours on the surface of the water for a millisecond before using the added leverage to jump the full length. Then next was the posts. The dog fluidly jumped to each one. The posts were only as wide as a dinner plate. But the way the dog moved with such balance and precision, it seemed to run across the very air, in the fastest record she had ever did see, which was about 12 seconds. Sim got to see what this dog knew, and boy did it know a lot. So the dog was fast, and had a good sense of balance as well as showing perfect stamina. But was it able to figure out problems? Think on its feet without commands? Was it able to take risks? These were the things that really mattered. So she moved on the next test, the intelligence test. It was a surprisingly simple test to humans. It was actually a device given to us when we were babies. You had these figures and you had to put them in the correct space. Well, this was the exact same thing, only when the dog did it, it got treats. And this dog was second to none. The first stage was 3 shapes. Then it went to 4, 6, 8, all the way to 32 different shapes. A lot of them look very similar. But once again this dog astounded her. It got each one correct. Next she added color into the factor. You had to match the correct shape and color. And just as before, he did it right. And in both tests the dog and ignored the treats. It didn't even look for them. He just put the correct shapes in and moved on to the next, ignoring the treats that fell out of the opening in the bottom. Then she went to a whole level greater. She tied the dog up, then put a large lock on it that could be only opened with a key. She then put 3 keys out. All of them you could easily tell from each other. And you could easily tell which key was supposed to go into the right lock due to the fact it had to be a moon-shaped key. The dog figured out what it had to do and picked the right key and broke itself free. Sim was starting to think of bringing Shikamaru Nara in to think up of something to test the beast, because she had nothing more for intelligence. She moved on to thinking on its feet. First she put the standard protection the dog would need, then headed out to gather up some other dogs. When Sim left, Naruto sighed. Holy hell, what does this woman want from me? Okay, the obstacle course was challenging. I didn't think I was going to make it that one time. I am doing all this stuff on the fly. Who knew my luck would be that good? At least I have gotten used to this body. I just don't know how to do other things, and these tests are simple, and kind of fun. Naruto's nose brought him back to reality. He smelled 10 dogs. They weren't the usual large sturdy Inazaka dogs. These were the cast-offs. Only 1 of 2 from each litter was paired with a ninja. These dogs mostly were used either for breeding or training the real Inazaka familiars. So all in all they weren't that skilled. Any Inazaka dog could fight them easily. Once she had 10 good sound dogs, ones that would listen to her, she put protection on them. She then placed Fluffy in the middle of the field and had the 10 dogs sit in equal spacing around Fluffy. Then she got out of the way and gave the command to attack. The 10 dogs, thinking like Pack, thought they would win. 10 to 1 odds was easy enough. Even Sim thought this dog would not be able to do anything. The dog did something she never saw before. Instead of rushing at them, or trying to get away or cowering in the I give up stance, the dog stood calm, composed, waiting for them. Then it tensed its body, and sprung into action as the first dog met him. He dodged the first set of teeth, and flew through the air, landing in front of the 10 dog pile up. He then waited until they sorted themselves out. The dogs rushed him in a line. A few were faster than the rest. Fluffy was even faster. He dodged, got underneath their heads and sunk his teeth into the fur on their necks, and flipped them onto the earth using a power she couldn't believe he had. 3 dogs were out. The others backed up momentarily until a new leader shifted through the ranks. He was a big and tough dog, while muscular and large. Fluffy just waited for him. The last of the dogs made a V as they charged him. This time Fluffy ran out to intercept them as well. At the last second he put his head down, and hit the earth, and used his body as a weapon to slide beneath the lead dog's legs, and trip him. It worked all too well. The sounds of barks and alarm and whining came from the pile as dogs' legs got entwined with one another, and they bit and lunged at anything that came near them in their moment of panic. Fluffy just simply picked himself off, shook the dust from his fur and padded over to her, a challenge in his eyes, once again saying, "Is that the best you go?" It was too easy. Sim then did something that was only tested once in a great while. The burning building exercise. She inside placed a doll that looked like a human baby. She then made Fluffy sniff it and get the scent in his head. She then placed the baby inside a cheap housing building on the far end of the compound. It was small, only 2 stories, 4 rooms on each floor. They never used it for anything other than this purpose. She made Fluffy sit outside as she had the building set on fire. She then motioned for the dog to go after the doll. Fluffy immediately bounded for a dead blackened tree that still managed to stand after catching fire so many times. He bounded up the trunk into a branch that led to a second-story window. He jumped through it, glass and all. Naruto landed on the wood floor. Already he could feel the heat of the fire downstairs, but he shook himself and sorted through the smoke for the smell of the doll. He searched for it. It was in none of the empty rooms upstairs, so he went downstairs. He slid past the fire that was licking the sides of the stairwell, and searched the bottom half of the house. Naruto kept his head low to where the good air was, away from the smoke. Then he found the strongest scent of the doll, right beneath him. He looked carefully to see that Sim had eased open a floorboard and had placed the doll in. Naruto worked a claw in to pop open the floorboard. It was tedious work. It required balance and skill to lift the jammed board using claws, but finally the board came out with a pop. Naruto gently picked up the doll, which was wrapped in a swaddled blanket. He looked around for the nearest exit. The fire had spread by now. The flames crawled up the stairs and was licking the edges of the ceiling. The very air scorched his lungs when he breathed. Naruto put his head low and danced his way through the flames. They leapt all around them. The heat from them hurt his eyes and sensitive nose. But he moved forward, knowing if this were a real child this would be life or death situation. Naruto saw the door up ahead. He momentarily paused, which was a good thing because some bracing fell from ceiling just in front of him. Naruto backed slightly, then braced his legs and jumped over the mound of burning derbies. He landed on the other side. Now it was the door. The door knob had melted and was a glowing red. Naruto was no fool to even think of getting near it. Instead he spun around and kicked the door with his back paws with all his might. It was tiring. Naruto felt he was being roasted alive, but he had to press on. A few more good hard kicks and the door buckled. He broke through and ran, knowing that when that new air got to the fire there would be a backlash as the flames would burst in size. Naruto ran all the way until he got to Tsum. Then he gently set the doll down. He was tired and hot. He knew parts of his fur were singed. He smelt of fire and burned hair. But more than that, he was proud, because he could see the admiration and shock in Tsum's wild eyes. She knelt and picked up the doll and looked at it. Not a mark on it. She smirked and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Dog, I don't know where you're from or how, but you are special. That Hinata is lucky to have you." She then stood up. "Someone stop the fire and escort this dog to Hana. She'll look after him." Naruto followed one of the Inazakas back to the main house. Then Hana saw him and gasped. Tsum walked in after him. "Mother, you didn't!" she exclaimed. Tsum nodded. "I had to. Right now this dog, this Fluffy, is good enough to be one of our own familiars." He was a little slow at the last exercise, but he passed. Hana stood, her mouth gaping. Tsum smirked, then added gruffly, "Well, stop staring and help the poor creature. He's singed, dirty, and tired." Hana nodded and took him away to get a bath, a medical exam, and finally some real food, a steak. Then it was off to bed, curled up beside Hinata. The next day Hinata's fever broke. She was able to regain much of her strength, and was even going for a walk with Kiba and Fluffy by sunset. She thanked the Inazaka household profusely before Tsum stopped her, and said it was Fluffy she should thank. Hinata then said she would be out as soon as possible, but Tsum would have none of it. Tsum stood affirmative. "You and Fluffy are staying here. You have no clan, and nowhere to go, and I dare not trust you on the streets without Fluffy. Beside, how are you going to take care of such a magnificent beat like that while you're homeless?" Hinata nodded, knowing Tsum was right. "But I have to earn my keep," she exclaimed, and Tsum nodded. "You will. When you go on missions, half of your earnings will go to us, for boarding of you and Fluffy. But first I would have Kiba trained you to get used to fighting with such a skilled animal." So the next 2 days she learned the basics. Since both her and Fluffy were committed and eager, they flew through the quizzes and classes, both of them excelling in what their mentor taught them. Hinata would work with Kiba, sometimes separate, learning how to treat dog wounds and care from Kiba and Hana, while Naruto snuck off with Kurama to learn a few basics of speech. Naruto trained with Hinata by day, then snuck out and trained as well at night. He knew he had a month at least to relearn how to do stuff in this new body. First it was how to do jutsus that required hand gestures, but from what Naruto learned, gestures were universal. If a ninja lost a hand or finger, they could change the way they did that sign as long as there was a separate gesture for each sign. You could have jutsus. Naruto did his gestures with his ears. They were fluid and flexible, and he was able to move them in 12 different ways to make a gesture for each of the signs. Then he moved on to applying chakra. First he started out with a jutsu he knew the best, multi-shadow clone jutsu. At first he was only able to summon a half-formed blob, but after more practice and concentration he was able to be back to his usual standards, Once he made a 100 perfect clones, he called it good. Next he set out for chakra control again, first placing a paw on a leaf and splitting it with chakra, then he testily walked across water. Once he mastered each step again, this time it took a matter of hours instead of days, he moved on to tree climbing. Soon in one night he had relearned how to do all of his genin rank and academy rank jutsus and abilities. The next night and worked on his Rasengan, knowing he couldn't use his paw, he thought long and hard of what to do. He thought of his tail but it was a no-go. Then he ended up thinking back to a cartoon Hinata watched in the morning before anyone was awake. About little creatures that battled other creatures. One of them was a cat that concentrated a sphere in its jaws, looking a lot like Rasengan. Naruto tried and discovered it would work with practice. Lots and lots of practice. Naruto once again snuck out and ran in the shadows. He quickly climbed a wall and headed towards a practice field. Usually he practiced in the Inazaka field, but tonight he would need more space, so he headed to training ground 7. He trotted peacefully through the night, his canine eyes seeing everything. His nose warned him if someone was coming or not. He scattered across leaves and stuck to the walls as though he was a shadow himself. No one would think anything of him running the streets, but still one had to be wary. Once he entered the practice field, he made sure no one was around and made several clones, thus he began to train to create a Rasengan again. It took a lot of patience, but with this many clones he was making his way rapidly through it. By midnight he had one, next he had to do it while moving, then he did it while walking across water. Naruto was happy the Kyuubi's chakra did not mess with his chakra flow anymore, so thus it was almost 100 times better at chakra control. Even Sakura would have to concentrate for this control. Next Naruto sat and started to think of other jutsus besides the ones he knew, thus Naruto began to create his own jutsus. The next 2 nights he thought, tested and trained many ideas, some not working but others becoming complete success. That night Naruto returned to the compound around 1 in the morning, a trot in his step. He had just finalized 3 new jutsus tonight. The first was Wind Art, Wolf Fawn no Jutsu, where he created large wolves that sprang out from mouth forming with chakra and attacked the target. He could make several of them or one of them. It was both offensive and defensive to a certain degree, but only worked close to mid-range. The next was Wind Art, Claw of the Wolf, where he concentrated chakra in his paws and materialized it to form wicked sharp claws of wind chakra like his Wind Rasengan, but without the drastic after effects, i.e. nerve damage. Then there was his form of an ultimate defense. Like the Hyuga and their chakra shield, he had one as well. But instead of spinning in place, he just constantly projected his chakra, forming a kind of armor in the shape of a wolf. He could extend this and disengage some parts at will. He knew this would come in handy. Yes, Naruto was happy, and he already had several ideas to what next to try. The next morning he awoke to find Hinata was already up. He followed her scent and found her not in her training gear but a simple black gown. And not just she, everyone was in one. Either her nor Kiba wore their headbands. Naruto whined to get her attention. She looked down, a sadness in her eyes. Fluffy, we are going to the memorial. We must be respectful. I am sorry, I do not think we shall train today. Sorry boy. Then she ruffled his fur. Naruto sighed inwardly. Then followed them out one by one as they headed towards the stadium where Naruto defeated Neji in the Chunin exams. It was also the place where there was a brutal attack on the village. Memories resurfaced strongly in his head as he padded silently next to Hinata. That's when he caught scent of trouble. He growled lowly and curled defensively around Hinata, placing his body in between her and what was coming, the entire main Hyuga branch. With Arashi as lead, and next to him with a plain face was little Hanabi, dressed in what was marked clan heiress gown. Hinata placed a hand on his back. It's okay Fluffy, I don't care, besides he dare not offend me now, he's in front of the other clan heads. Naruto barked in answer but still watched Arashi. He looked over and saw her, and him a small twinge of anger crossed his face, but he turned his head defiantly away, ignoring their presence altogether. Naruto and the rest made their way in him. Hinata and Kiba headed toward their places with the others of the Rookie 9 force. Hinata sat next to Neji. How's it going? She whispered. Neji answered just as silently. He is still waiting for you to show up at the doors. He thinks he'll fail and come crawling back to him, and he'll be able to gloat over you. Hinata shook her head. Not going to happen. I am staying with the Inazakas. Neji nodded. So I smell, cousin, and he smirking. Hinata elbowed him. Then all was silent as Tsunade took to the small stage erected. Behind her was 58 pictures with lanterns burning by them, each one for each Konoha ninja that died in battle, and the one exactly in the middle was Naruto's. Even in that picture frame you could easily see his bright smile and twinkling eyes from the back of the room. All the others looked dull in comparison. Hinata's breath caught in her throat. It seemed as though Naruto was staring right at her, as if saying, what's going on? Why are you holding a funeral service? I'm not dead. She quickly covered her mouth to stop the sob. She thought she had it under control, but the emotions came back with a menace. Just before she felt swept away by them, a warm sensation came from her leg. She looked down. Fluffy was there with a paw, and his eyes instantly captivated hers, holding them and calming her emotions instantly. The strong calm in those eyes were exactly what she needed to be able to live through this service. Hinata snaked a hand down and held that paw as well, then she smiled softly through the drying tears. It's okay, I get it. I stay strong for you, and you stay strong for me. Hinata thought it was weird, but she could have sworn that Fluffy smirked then nodded, as if he understood. But maybe too many tears in her eyes corrupted her vision. Tsunade went on about how great a ninja was, and how they sometimes have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. There was then a pause of silence for those who were being honored. Then she went on to talk about how each ninja made Konoha what it was, safe and free, and going on about that. It was a beautiful speech that sent chills down Hinata's spine just listening to the words of wisdom. They felt as though they were being spoken from the bottom of Tsunade's heart, pouring out of her very soul. Hinata realized they were. Naruto was one of the nearest and dearest to her. She also knew that Tsunade had also lost so many other loved ones as well. Hinata instantly felt even sadder for Tsunade, knowing Tsunade had to stay composed while she talked. It seemed to Hinata while she looked around at everyone gathered, Konoha was a broken mirror and Tsunade had to pick up the fragments and put them back together, being careful not to get cut by them. Then it was time for a small presentation. They put together of photos and sad touching music and projected it on the walls of the stadium. There were small quotes randomly put and made by each person. You knew which person belonged to which group. Cause a small cheer, or increased crying, came up from a certain groups of people. Then it was a picture for the first time of Naruto. It was startling, but it was clearly him, a full head of blonde hair, blue eyes, smiling, whisker marks, stood in a small kiddie pool full of mud holding a frog. A frog sat on his head. His shirt was wet and dirty and his shorts he wore totally trashed. But the most amazing thing was it was a picture of him, when he was maybe 5 or 6. A huge wave of cheering came up from most ninja. Even Tsunade made a giggle and clapped for him. Then it was a few other small memories. Then it was Naruto's turn again. Once more it was a young Naruto, maybe 7 or 8. He stared at the camera in disbelief as one hand held a carrot away from him. The look on his face was like, what is it? And what do you think I am supposed to do with it? Then the quote popped up on the bottom, why eat food when there is ramen? Uzumaki Naruto. Next there was a few teen pictures of the other ninja. A few funny ones when they graduated, all wearing their headbands upside down and laughing. A few close-ups and more quotes. Then at the very end it was a collage of all of them. Then the words scrolled up the screen, these are the names we shall never forget. Then one by one they appeared and faded away. Then the song ends. And just before people start clapping, Tsunade stepped up to the mic. The next part is a short video of one of these heroes. I found it while going through my office. I think all of you will enjoy it. Then the third's voice came on, is this blasted thing working? Then the camera was focused several times, then swung around to a view of the Hokage office. But then the chair swung around to see a little Naruto, a tiny one, he couldn't have been 3 or 4. The third's voice rang again, Naruto? Naruto, say hello to the camera. Naruto looked up at him and giggled, then hid no in the sweetest, cutest voice you ever did hear. Well then tell them how old you are? The third asked. Naruto popped up. Who? The third sighed, the people who are going to watch this someday. Naruto giggled, then waved happily hello. Everybody's then ducked under the desk again. The third sighed. Naruto, back up here and tell me your age. Naruto giggled, then held up his arm. I am 4 years old. He yelled. Note he kind of has a W sound in the middle of everything. The third laughed heartily. Yes, yes. And do you know what that means? Naruto popped up. I get ramen? A loud sigh. Besides the ramen. Naruto tilted his head. Then what, old man? The third muttered. Stop calling me that. I am the oh never mind. Naruto laughed and jumped into his chair. Okay, now what are you doing? Naruto laughed. Being Okage. He dropped the H in Hokage. The third laughed again. You are a little small, don't you think? Naruto grinned. No. I am Okage. I not little. More laughter escaped from the crowd. Then the third placed a hat on Naruto's head. It was the Hokage hat. It completely engulfed his head. Naruto moved his head around. I can't see. He exclaimed, then lifted it. Okay, maybe. I not big enough yet. The third sighed. You'll get there. Naruto looked excited. Really? I going to be Okage? The third laughed. Yeah, one day. If you train hard enough. Naruto got a devilish grin. Okay then, I will get bigger, and stronger, then I be Okage. You remember that, old man? By this time the entire stadium was in tears from laughter, except for the solemn group of main branch Hyuga. Then Naruto jumped down from the chair. Where are you going? Naruto rolled his eyes to get ramen. Does the third side again? Naruto grinned. Yes, remember, I have to get stronger, so I need more ramen. By everyone's. Naruto said directly to the camera. Wait, why are you saying goodbye? Naruto grinned. Because when you say hello, you Haveda say goodbye. This is my goodbye. The goodbye. Now I go get ramen. Then he held up a purse, a glint in his eyes. The third said with a dash, Naruto, give me my wallet back. Then Naruto ran off screaming in laughter. The third put the camera down. Little rascal, I'll get you. Then the third's figure passed by the camera and then you heard Naruto's voice yell, old man, you can't catch me. I'ma be future Okage, believe it. Then the footage cut off. By the end of the footage there was rolls of laughter. Even Hinata was laughing hard. Tsunade went back to the podium. As you can see, I thought it would be good, because funerals are not just to remember the ones that are gone but to remember who they were when they were here. The service continued on normally from then on. They walked up and put a flower in a large pile meant for each person, then they turned and left. It was usually the Hokage and relations only to those who had died. Friends and comrades must go later. It was a cruel and hard rule, but a rule they had to follow, so they each filed out and met up with each other outside. Sakura hugged Hinata. Where have you been? She asked. Hinata hugged her back and said, I am staying with Kiba and his clan. Sum and Hana treat me like family almost, and Fluffy is taken care of. I am already training him to be a good ninja dog. We learn fast, she said happily. Just then they heard a loud voice say out, training a ninja dog, are we? I thought you were born Hyuga, even if you don't deserve it, Have the decency to make a name for us even if you no longer have one. Hinata turned. It was her father. What do you want now? Hinata said, seeming to sigh in frustration. You are no longer Hyuga in name, but you still have the blood trait. You know full well what that means. You must have the seal placed on you. Hinata gasped and stepped back. No. She knew full well if she had that placed upon her, she would never have any freedom ever again. Fluffy stepped up, fangs at the ready to defend. Hirashi glared at her. Hinata, why must you be like this? It is the rules. All Hyugas that are no longer members of the main house must wear the caged bird seal. Hinata glared and snapped. I am not going to follow those rules any longer. I am not Hyuga, therefore I am no longer in the rules. Hirashi looked down at her. If you're not Hyuga, then what are you? You must have a name. Hinata smiled. I am Hinata, just Hinata, not Hyuga, or Inazaka, just Hinata. I don't need a surname. Hirashi's face turned purple in anger, then suddenly his eyes switched over. The others were grabbed by their parents or clanmates. Some wanted to rip the hide of that no-good Hyuga, but she knew as well as every clan head knew, if they or a person from their clan laid a hand on him or interspersed with his work, they could pay very severely. Hyuga clan has always been a leading clan since the Uchiha had died away. Already you could see the circles of the sealing jutsu taking place in the area Hinata stood. She was frozen in place, unable to move. But that did not mean Fluffy could not. Naruto looked down at the symbols on the seal. Already an ancient wisdom that had been passed down for generation from his mother's ancestors surfaced in his mind. He was an Uzumaki master of Fuinjutsu. They created the seals to seal away the nine-tailed fox. So he could easily see through the guise of the seal. Already his mind was creating, saving and storing away the information to undo the seal. Naruto found this ability out only a short bit ago. Megumi must have somehow gave him the true Uzumaki blood trait. He never had it when he was a human, but now he did. It was interesting and helped him out greatly. Hirashi was a fool for showing this to him. But then again, he was in the body of an animal. Hirashi would not recognize him. Naruto growled, daring Hirashi to step forward and place the seal. Hirashi smirked and moved. Overconfidence screamed from his posture. But Naruto, who had trained by a Hyuga's side for the past few days, was used to the fast movement of the Hyuga. Even that was nothing compared to what his father the Yondaime could do with Flying Thunder God technique. Naruto dodged the blow by jumping backwards and effectively pushing Hinata's paralyzed body out of the ceiling center. Hinata, now free, activated her Bakugan and went into a familiar posture. Without even saying the command, Fluffy was by her side in the correct position that they had trained and practiced for hours on end with Kiba drilling them. Hirashi was shocked beyond belief. Not only did the dog dodge his move, but was able to intercept Hinata from the seal. That said dog was growling like a wild wolf, low and menacing. His eyes were alive with anger, burning like amber in the deep blue coloring. Teeth fully bared, eerily shining white, glinting off the lights nearby. Hirashi looked around. Every eye was watching him. They held their breath, their bodies taut with anticipation, wanting and dreading to see what he would do next. Then the animal turned its head to Hinata, cocked an ear and whined, as if asking for something. Hinata smirked and said, Fluffy, sick, and with a confident slyness. The dog barked and leaped into action. He charged him head on. Hirashi rolled his eyes and started to go into a chitin. But before he could, the dog instead changed its course, looking as if to come in behind. Hirashi was going to turn toward the mutt, but Hinata intercepted him, matching each of his blows with dead-on accuracy. Her Bakugan eyes burned with retribution and defiance. They stayed like that, in amidst the clashing Bakugan battle. But meanwhile Fluffy was behind him, waiting and watching like the wolf in his nature does, stalking his prey. Naruto eased up slowly. He knew Hinata would be able to defend herself, so all he had to do was wait. Right there it was. Hinata had quick-like struck Hirashi, not a chakra node but a regular body pressure point. Hirashi was startled and backed up a step, momentarily forgetting to keep an eye out. Naruto took his moment. He leaped into the range of the Hyuga's one blind spot, angling his body so it stayed untraceable until it was too late. Hirashi caught on, but it was already too late. Naruto dug his claws into Hirashi's shoulder, effectively off-balancing the man. Hinata then proceeded to strike all of his body's chakra nodes this time. A look of shock and triumph etched on her face. Naruto would always remember that proud look, as Hinata finally broke free from him. Naruto stayed on the defeated man's chest, his paws resting on Hirashi's throat. Hinata looked down on him. She was slightly out of breath, but stated loudly, calmly, and with all the pride she had, Hinata said, Father, you will never lay a hand on me ever again. If you do, I will let Fluffy kill you, and I will help him do it. To add to her threat, Naruto growled. Then Hinata called him off. You gave me everything I wanted, but there is one thing I always wanted that I know you could never give me. She paused to let it sink in. Freedom. You can never bear to let something go, can you? Greedy old man. Well, now I am taking it for myself, and this time you can't stop me. And with that she turned on her heel and marched away. Hirashi staggered up. He was about to yell something, but Naruto turned and met his eyes. Naruto did not growl nor bark. He just stared, his eyes piercing and strong, burning with an intense fire so intense and bright Hirashi had to look away. He then looked back. The animal studied him for a few more seconds before, like a slap to his face and an even greater sting to his pride, the dog bowed his head, then turned and ran after Hinata, leaving Hirashi to stare at nothing. When all was done there was a silence. Not a person said a word. It was heavy, but you could feel the air start to life and buzz with emotion with every step Hinata took. Finally a person started to clap. One by one until it was a roar. Every person there clapped and cheered Hinata. They went up to her and patted her on the back, some even pet Fluffy, then Tsum, Kiba and Hana broke through the crowd. They ran up to her and hugged her, even Kiba, who then broke apart and smirked wildly saying, "You did everything I taught you, you were amazing." Hinata reddened at the compliment but thanked Kiba. No, it was all Fluffy, she said, looking down at her wonder dog, but he was not there anymore. Before she could call out to him, she was swept away by the crowd. A lone figure watched Hinata get toted away. Naruto sat in the darkness of some nearby trees. He nodded. Good, that will keep her busy for a bit. I have some business to take care of. He then trotted through the evening, headed towards the one place he has always been meaning to go ever since he found out about his parents, his father's home. Naruto stalked the streets once more, hiding in the darkness. I am starting to feel like a rat with all this hiding in the darkness. But to save the village I must stay low, he thought to himself. He made his way to a place few travel. It was the home of the fourth Hokage. Left as it was, only a few people took care of the grounds, and a person in Umbu went into the house to make sure the house stayed in top form, for it was a lasting memory of the fourth's heroism. The house would have been Naruto's if had returned alive and claimed his birthright. But it was not so. So Naruto then decided to break into his house instead of claiming it. The only thing he cared about was what was in his father's private study. So Naruto did just that. He eased in, making sure to disengage all alarm seals placed by the Umbu. Naruto smirked and thanked his mother's heritage for giving him the ability to basically see through and disengage all these complicated seals. Naruto walked the halls of what should have been his childhood home if it wasn't for Madara, but he didn't mind. His apartment was just as good, and he had very good substitutes for his family. Plus the fact of knowing his parents were technically with him all along soothed him as well, so he continued on to the study. Once more he looked for seals, broke through them and entered the room. It once might have been a large room, but it was so filled with papers and scrolls, piled high to the ceiling. Naruto gaped. So this is where my cluttering nature comes from. As he weaved his way through the maze of paper mountains, Naruto settled down and began to just read. Naruto studied critically everything, locking it to memory. Few knew of this, but when Naruto wanted to learn something, he used a small knack of ingeniousness to do it. Like Shikamaru, Naruto was also a genius when he was motivated enough, and due to the fact that he had to measure up to a S-class criminal within the body of an animal, really motivated some people to learn all they could. He flew over the information, comprehending and memorizing it, with dead-on accuracy. If he was human and did this, people would have freaked out if they saw him, Uzumaki Naruto, studying this intently. Naruto even went through some scrolls that had many good wind-type jutsus. Naruto also committed them to memory, and thought of ways of enhancing them or making them usable to this form. Naruto reached into a darker side of Fuinjutsu, the nasty stuff. Naruto shivered but continued on. If he knew he would ever battle Sasuke in the future, he would have to somehow be able to get around the Susanoo. Then an idea came to his head. If they could seal away an entity like the Nine Tails, was it possible to seal something out? The Hyuga clan had stumbled upon it without even knowing it. They were, in a context, sealing a person's chakra nodes close for a matter of time. So was it possible to seal something a person has, let's say a jutsu, or ability, indefinably? Well, the Hyuga clan also solved that as well. The Hyuga clan can on a will seal a person's ability away. Naruto smirked. It could be possible to seal Sasuke's Susanoo out of him, so that he could never reach it. But it might require a price, something in return like the person's soul. Like when you do the sealing of a nine-tailed beast inside your newborn son. Naruto, though harder, accessing an ancient wisdom, then it came to him. When a person gives something up like their soul, they actually do it so they can save time and make up for the lack of something they don't have. Then Naruto thought even harder. Jiraiya and Orochimaru both stumbled onto something but never investigated further, the use of the 5 elements. If one had the use of 5 elements, if only for a small amount of time, that person would then be whole and thus be able to do many things considered impossible, without sacrificing themselves. So if Naruto was able to concentrate all 5 elements, he would be able to seal of the Susanoo. His heart leapt at the thought. Now it would take a lot of elemental chakra, and a lot of time he would have to get it right. So if he had 5 clones each using the different chakra natures, then go through the different signs he already had in his head. Crap. He would have to write this plan down before he forgot it. Naruto found an empty scroll, got some ink, then quickly solved out how to write by using the only bushy thing he had, his tail. Naruto dipped the tip in the ink and began to write, his tail flying over the page, each intricate pattern of each kanji perfect. As he wrote down the instruction and the actual jutsu, he then went finished with the final draft, which took half the night to make. Ado o Futon Keomiya wa Tadakai no Kami Okada, which translated over to Forbidden Sealing Art, Raging God of Battle, because the Susanoo was just that, a raging god of battle. One that grew stronger with hate, sometimes, unless Naruto was able to seal off the necessary chakra to summon it. The Susanoo only works when a certain amount of chakra is left, and feeds off of it. Also, it only works as long as Sasuke can see. Naruto noticed this when Sasuke was battling Kakashi. Naruto sighed, knowing he should get back to Hinata, but he looked at all the beautiful scrolls and papers lying there ready to be read, holding wisdom that could make him even stronger. Naruto shook his head. Since when did I become so interested in learning? Naruto smirked. It was ironic. In a way, he really was dead. He barely recognized himself anymore. Instead of loud and bright, he stayed quiet and dark, waiting from shadows. Instead of goofing off and having fun, he was staying reserved and training and studying to the extent of breaking into past Hokage houses to learn what was in them. Naruto started to put everything away. But this was what he had to do. When this dark cloud that only he could see was past, then he would be able to come back as his old self. But right now his village needed him, Tsunade needed him, and more importantly his friends needed him. Naruto then went back outside to find Hinata. He followed the scent until he spotted her with many others standing in front of the hero stone. Naruto went up to her, and when she looked down there, "You are Fluffy, off visiting you female friends I bet, or getting in trouble. Anyway, I am glad you came back. This is the hero's stone, they just added all the names to it." Naruto sighed. It was very embarrassing having to be talked to like this. But he would have to hold out until the time came. And if right on cue he caught the scent of a very familiar person, one that sent his blood to go cold with a strong hatred towards that person, he turned. It was Sasuke. He held himself back from jumping on him at that moment, but he did growl just a little. Hinata looked down at him. "Fluffy, it's just Sasuke. I know you haven't met him, but he usually takes so good to new people. Come on now, calm down." Naruto did, but he kept staring at his own name forever etched in that cold stone as Sasuke weaved more lies of how sorry he was and blah blah blah. It sickened Naruto to now and how they all nodded and seemed to share his loss, and accept him. Naruto kept his rage deep within him, controlling it so he could use it in a precise manner. He slipped deep into his unconscious and just thought about what to do, what to train, how to train, and did come up with more stuff, and by that time Sasuke was gone and Hinata was calling him to leave. Naruto was about to leave when he saw Kakashi. He was saddened, and he had taken off his hideout, "Thank you Bloodkitsun 11, and was looking at it sadly. No one else noticed it. Naruto's sharp ears picked up his mumble of "I shouldn't be a ninja. I have let too many die." Then he dropped his hideout. Naruto went over to it. It laid in the mud. Kakashi started to walk away. Naruto barked. Kakashi turned. Naruto picked it up and carried it to him. Kakashi looked surprised. Naruto set it gently on his foot and sat down, looking into Kakashi's eye. Kakashi looked down at this strange yet strong animal, and looked into its eyes as it sat down. He could not name it, but it was as if the dog spoke to him through those eyes. It seemed to say, "Do not give up," as if it wanted him to keep going. Kakashi was feeling as though he was wrestling himself. Naruto had always kept going and he wanted to believe in Naruto, but now he was dead, like so many of his other comrades. Rin, Obito, Asuma, Jiraiya, Tsunade-sensei, and now even Naruto. So many. He thought to himself. Had always believed in going on and keep moving, yet they had died, and he lived. In fact, he even came back once from death during the battle between the pains. Should he give it another chance? To put on that symbol that had went through so much? That had been splattered with so many tears and drenched in so much blood, the very hideout that his sensei, the fourth Hokage, gave him? Should he put it on, and keep moving? What was the point? He has lost almost everyone he had ever held dear to him. Then Sakura, who had noticed Kakashi and Fluffy, walked over to them, saw what was happening. She sighed softly, then just as softly said, "Kakashi, you're not giving up, are you? Look, I know you lost a lot of people, but you have to remember that you meet new people as well. If you stopped being a ninja, who would be my sensei? You are the only person I would have left. Plus, think, Kakashi, take your own words of advice. Those who break the rules are considered scum, but those who forget about their comrades are even worse than scum." Kakashi gazed at her thoughtfully. He looked back at all the years, all the friends he had lost, even the newest casualty was there, Naruto smiling proudly at him, standing next to Obito, Jiraiya, Asuma, and his sensei, the fourth Hokage. Kakashi nodded as he smiled thoughtfully beneath his mask. Sakura was right. No matter how much pain there is, sometimes just keep moving on is the only thing you can do, because even though you are lost in a dark cave, if you keep moving your hands, following along the walls and guiding your small steps, odds are you will find the light. Kakashi looked down at his hideout. He picked it up and put it back on, then rested a hand on Fluffy's head. "Thank you, Fluffy," he said, and turned to Sakura and nodded, bringing her into a brief hug, before nodding to her and poofing away in a cloud of smoke. Sakura looked at Fluffy, who looked at her. She sighed and walked over to the stone and rested a hand on Naruto's newly engraved name. "We need you now more than ever, Naruto." Naruto sighed and said inwardly, "You don't know the half of it." Naruto and Hinata continued to train, getting stronger each day, while Naruto snuck to his father's study each night to read and study. He also practiced his jutsu to seal the Susanoo, and many more, adding a few more jutsus to his list, both water and wind type. By the time Naruto felt he was back up to his usual level, a month had swiftly went by. Naruto now knew he had to keep tabs on Sasuke from now on, and just as he had thought, everyone was back to trusting and pitying the Uchiha. Naruto kept his emotions in, saving them for that day. Until then he practiced more of his speech. Sometimes, to see how good he was, he hid in bushes and called out to people. It seems he was getting excellent. One day he even had a very long nice chat with a blind man in the park. Despite all this, Naruto still felt he was inadequate. He had to somehow test himself. Practicing with dummies brought you only so far. Hinata had not been on any missions that required him. He was always left at the compound with the other dogs. Naruto decided one day to go out and see if he could track down Sasuke, so Naruto did so, and fate was on his side, because Sasuke looked very suspicious today. Naruto followed at a distance, Every often or so the Uchiha would turn to glance over his shoulder. Then he slithered into the alleyway of 2 buildings and followed it until it led to a dead-end wall. Or was it? Sasuke paused momentarily, then slipped through the wall. It rippled slightly, like a pool of water, and then steadied. Naruto waited a few moments before following him through. Naruto entered in. It was a small room that led to some steps. Naruto followed the waving dark steps down a ways before he heard voices. Sasuke, you are here. Sasuke answered, yes, my lord. Naruto settled down and began to listen in. Most of what they said was uninteresting. They talked of civil matters, what people had said from other towns, what information spies had brought in. Then finally Danzo said Tsunade has been said to indulge in her sake even more due to her stress and grief. This is a perfect time to try our first plot. The sound of a drawer opening was heard. Then this contains a poison, odorless, tasteless, and has no apparent effects until the user tries to use his or her chakra. Then the person will go into a very violent seizure, and have a massive attack on the nerve endings, effectively stopping the heart. Naruto was shocked by this. There was a silence. Then Sasuke then said, so into her private sake stash, where no one has tested for poison. Danzo chuckled, not a complete fool, are we? Yes, that's exactly what I want you to do. In fact, you can do it today. I have a letter made for her to come interrogate suspicious traitors immediately. Go and give this to her. She will leave. Shizen will follow after her, leaving you to find the stash in her office. Come back when you have delivered both messages. Naruto growled lowly. How dare he be so coy? Thinking he had Tsunade figured out to a key, but when Naruto thought about it, that was exactly what Tsunade did. She just bolted out of her office and Shizen was left chasing after her. Either one cared if someone was left standing awkwardly in her office. The sound of 2 chairs scooting on the floor made Naruto scuttle as fast as he could out of the building. He quickly then immersed himself in digging in a trash can when Sasuke came out. The Raven looked at him and laughed. Wow, Hinata, he really is a proud and noble beast, digging in the garbage for moldy food. Then he stalked away. Joke's on you, thought Naruto, you didn't even notice that this trash has no food in it. Tenge. Naruto jumped out and trailed after Sasuke once more. Danzo was surprisingly right. Once Tsunade read the letter, she ran out of the office and Shizen ran after her, completely ignoring and forgetting about Sasuke. Sasuke then began to scope out for her stash. Naruto watched all of this from behind a secret wall Jiraiya had showed him with a peephole, so Jiraiya could check up on Tsunade. Sasuke found the stash quickly. It was hidden beneath the rug in a secret compartment in the floor. He opened it, and poured the contents of the packet into each sake bottle. Naruto waited until Sasuke was gone, then jumped out and began to collect the stash. He kept an ear cocked to listen for Tsunade coming back. He picked up each bottle gingerly, then carried them to a blank scroll, and sealed them away. He tucked the scroll into his hideout, then quickly ran downstairs to the kitchen where he knew they had sake. He brought back the right number of bottles and placed them in the secret compartment. Then shut the small door, and flipped back the rug. Naruto then got out as fast as he could and ran to his father's study. He put the scroll down, grabbed a bigger scroll, and sealed that scroll into the bigger scroll. He then marked the big scroll as evidence. Naruto then ran back to the compound before he was missed. Naruto was lying comfortably on his side when Kiba and Hinata came in laughing. Man, that movie was hilarious. Kiba exclaimed. Hinata grinned widely. Yeah, I agree. Hinata came into the room. Fluffy, how are you, boy? Hey, guess what? In a few days I am going on an actual mission outside of the city. Wanna come along? Naruto barked happily, tail wagging. Hinata laughed and leaned down to pet him. Good boy. Then they heard a knock on the door. Kiba answered it. It was Shikamaru, Ino, Sakura, and Lee. Hinata gasped and leaped for joy. I can't believe it. We can finally meet for the first time without missions or wars getting in the way. Sakura giggled. You are getting just as loud as the Inazaka's, Hinata. I remember a time you could barely speak. Hinata laughed. Yeah, I know. Naruto walked over. Hey Fluffy, who's a big strong dog. Yes, you are, Ino said, petting him and making him roll over to scratch his tummy, which Naruto actually liked. Hinata laughed. He is so pampered. I spoil him. Kiba laughed. Yes you do. Hinata elbowed him in the ribs. Quiet. It's not like you don't pamper Akamaru, Kiba sighed, but he's just a puppy still. Everyone broke into laughter. Once again, maybe to you, said Shikamaru. Just then Some walked in. Nara kid, she exclaimed happily. Good, just the guy I needed. Listen, I need you to think of some other ways to test the dog's intelligence. Shikamaru looked at her. Huh? Some sighed. Fluffy, he's aced all of my intelligence tests. I need more tricky ones. Shikamaru looked at the dog. Sure, let me think about it. Then Shikamaru bent down and resumed his normal position when concentrating. After a few moments of awkward silence, he opened his eyes, then looked to Fluffy. Fluffy, I want you to go get a shogi board. Before anyone could interject, saying that a dog couldn't possibly know what that is, Naruto had left and dragged one back. Shikamaru smirked. Well, we have one mystery solved, the one to why he is so smart. He understands human language. They gasped except Some. Yes, so does Kuramaru. And most dogs. But Shikamaru shook his head. No, you see, I didn't show him what I wanted before asking him. I told him in plain tongue as if I was asking one of you. Kuramaru could probably do that as well, but Akamaru? Shikamaru said, glancing at the said dog that was chasing his own tail. Some gave a shrill whistle. Kuramaru walked in. She looked to him. Kuramaru, you can talk to Fluffy in dog tongue, right? Kuramaru nodded. Well, ask him what he can and can't do. Kuramaru nodded, then turned to Fluffy. They started to give small barks and whimpers as they spoke to each other. Say I can't talk, Naruto said. Why? Kurama asked. Naruto growled, because they can't know a thing. Not yet. Do you want Konoha destroyed? Kurama sighed. Fine, but excuse is needed. Naruto thought for a moment. My vocal cords aren't right. Kurama shrugged. It was worth a shot. Kurama turned back to them, voice of his, unable to speak to you. Some nodded. See, Shikamaru. Kurama is not as dumb as you say him to be. Shikamaru glanced at the dog. I never said he was dumb. I was just saying if I told him to get something he never heard of before, he would not be able to get it. Hinata looked at Shikamaru. What do you mean? Shikamaru sighed. Well, Hinata, you found him in the wild. How many wild dogs do you know? That can understand what you say and know what a shogi board is when I know none of you play it, let alone tell your dogs what it is. Kiba looked at Fluffy. He does have a point. Hey Kuramaru, can you ask him where he was before he came here? Kuramaru looked at him. Well, what is story? Naruto sighed. My father was a wolf and got shot when I was just a pup, and my only other brother died during the winter. My mom raised me and we stayed together until she got trapped and killed for her fur. I wandered lost for a while until an old man took me in and nursed me to health. He always played shogi by himself, and told me about it, talking to me as if I was human. But then some bad men came and attacked us. I tried to fight, but couldn't. The man died and I ran. I then fell into a river and met Hinata. The reason why I protect her is to make sure none of those who treat me nicely will ever get hurt when I am around. Kurama returned and told them what Naruto had said. Interesting, Shikamaru said, scratching his chin. Oh Fluffy, that is so sad. She then reached down and hugged him tightly. But you are a sweet and kind dog, and don't worry, nothing like that will never happen. Naruto sighed but let her hug him. Shikamaru then sat at the board. The old man ever teach you to play? Naruto barked and walked over, and sat by it. Kurama then said yes. Old man taught Fluffy all of his tricks. You want to feed me, pup? Fluffy says. Shikamaru smirked. Pup am I? Then the game commenced. Shikamaru stared. Mouth agape. He was absolutely flabbergasted. He could think of nothing. He was speechless. He couldn't believe what had just happened. Never, and he meant never, has anyone ever bested him like this dog did. The dog just sat there staring intently, while the girls kept back giggles and the guys stifled laughter. Then Kiba could not contain it. You just got beat by a walking fur ball, Papamaru. Kiba said, making fun of what Fluffy had called Shikamaru. Everyone had a good laugh as Shikamaru crossed his arms and said, this is so troublesome. Naruto nodded to Shikamaru then left. He waited until late night before he got up again and went to train once more. Naruto sighed as he walked to the training grounds. I really should stop calling so much attention to myself. It could blow my cover, he said quietly to himself. Naruto looked up at the moon. Someday I will be able to talk freely and laugh once more, he thought to himself, and continued on into the night. Days went by swiftly for Naruto. Between keeping tabs on Sasuke, missions, his extra training and studying, he was running himself ragged. But he did not stop, nor did he even slow down. He pressed onward knowing that he must do this. He had to get Sasuke back, he had to. Danzo and his goons were patient, but Naruto was more. He had stopped 3 assignation attempts already. He has also been writing down the names of people he has heard in the many meetings he had overheard. He also marked a map to where each secret hideout was. All of these things he kept inside his evidence scroll. Weeks went by. Most everything stayed the same, but Danzo was getting testy. Someone was uncovering the attempts, yet none of the attempts had been revealed to the public. It was as if someone was protecting the Hokage without even telling her. Still he paced his office, planning on what to do. If this keeps up, I will no choice but to overthrow her with force, he thought. Then he looked down. He had one more plan to do before he was left with that option. It was a more testy approach. A quick assassination while she slept. He had no choice. He picked up a small folded paper and put chakra into it. It formed into a little black bird. It came to life and flew to the person it was meant to go to, as he summoned Sasuke once more. Naruto dozed. The sunlight warmed him up in a nice way. Hinata was once more with Kiba out somewhere. It's good she has got over me. Kiba will be good for her, he thought to himself, knowing full well that they were more than just friends after Naruto had saw them in a deep kiss behind a tree only a few days ago. Naruto smiled sadly. He knew that even if he was human, he could never like her like that. She was a smart, beautiful, kind person, but he saw her like a sister. The same with Sakura. He didn't know who he liked. So in a way it was good he died. It eased over the fact he would have had to confront her about it, and he didn't want to see her side rolled over. Something was bugging him. He decided to get up and go see what Sasuke was up to. Naruto walked the streets openly. No one paid any real attention to him, but still Naruto kept a wary eye out. Then Naruto saw a flash of familiar reflex. He hid behind a barrel. It was Sasuke, and in his pocket he could see the edge of a paper black bird, which meant Danzo had summoned him. Naruto grinned. My gut is always right, he thought as he quickly followed but made it look like he was not following. Once again Sasuke disappeared by a familiar walk-through wall. Naruto slipped in carefully after, placing himself in his usual hidden spot, a small vent duct. Danzo was getting testy, he could smell it. Finally he said, this is the last silent option we have, he said angrily, throwing something at Sasuke. He commanded Sasuke violently sneak into her room when she is asleep, and smother her with a pillow. He said then added, it will look natural. Everyone will think the old bitch died of old age, so no one will suspect foul play. That was it. Sasuke nodded and left. Naruto then got up and entered the outside world again. Naruto's heart raced in his throat. His gut told him that the time was drawing in. Naruto quickly ran to the woods and once again trained his sealing jutsu even more, practicing until it was perfect. Sasuke Uchiha snuck through a window. Tsunade had no guards or any arms due to the fact she was Tsunade. No one would try and mess with her. Oh, how naive people could be. Sasuke wore a black mask to cover his face. His hair was pulled back in a small pony to keep out of his eyes, and he eased across the floor slowly, making sure not to make a noise. Finally he came to her bedroom. She slept deeply, her henge taken off for the night. She had some wrinkles, but due to her good health and assortment of creams she used, she did not look as old as she should be. Her hair, on the other hand, was thin and graying. She looked in a way innocent, the way she had no idea her life was about to end. Sasuke poised the pillow ready to smother her. It was just over her head when a howl split the calm night. Sasuke vanished, dashed away instantly. As Tsunade woke with a start, she heard the sound of something landing softly outside her window, then the poof of someone transporting themselves away. Tsunade rose and calmly went to the window that was open. Somehow she knew that her life had been in danger. It was like a premonition in her gut. She smirked as she reached to grab an almost invisible object naked in the night. But she did see a strand of beautiful black hair. This told her that the person who had broken and probably tried to murder her in her sleep with a pillow. How interesting. Tsunade placed the hair in a small bag, then went through her mind of those who knew the transporting jutsu, then with black or dark long hair, then to people who have questionable backgrounds. She snorted. It was quite obvious who had tried to do this. Let's just say she was going to have a very interesting chat with Uchiha Sasuke tomorrow. Then it dawned on her that tomorrow she had to do a Rookie 9 assessment. So he was going to be there, and if he did show, she could question him. If he didn't, then she could assume, if her hunch was right, it was him, then she could track him down and kill him. Briefly the thought of Naruto crossed her mind. Sorry brat, wherever you are, he's not worth saving, I hope you understand. Then she went back to bed. After locking the windows, of course. Naruto smirked to himself. He howled at just the right time. He ran happily back, adding an extra bound in his step. That should slow them down, he thought as he ran back to the compound, before Hinata woke up to find him missing again. The last time was not good. Kiba got in her head that he was out visiting lady friends, and he needed to be taken care of, meaning fixed, and he was not getting that done. Not without a fight, of course. Sasuke swore and cursed. As he ripped the mask off, he would have to get her another time, until then act like nothing happened. So he would go to the assessment tomorrow even though his guts told him no. But what did he care? The only thing at the moment he wanted was revenge on that animal that had made that noise. It was a deliberate howl, and there was only one animal in the entire village to howl like that. That low moaning wolf howl, with a slight high-pitched keen to it. Let's just say he was going to have an interesting talk with Hinata tomorrow. Naruto sat looking up at the moon. His nerves were frazzled and his heart raced. Tomorrow is most assuredly going to be the confrontation day, he thought to himself. Naruto heaved a heavy sigh. I wonder what they will think, he thought as he looked towards Hinata's room. Naruto followed Hinata and Kiba as they walked to the Hokage's office. They were caught up in conversation and paid him no heed. So Naruto, taking his chance, slowly slipped behind them and soon split away and ran to his father's house. He went over and picked up his evidence scroll and was about to go when he spotted some old wrist braces. They were in a far corner, hidden and tucked away in the back. He walked over to them. They were metal, with leather padding on the inside to keep the skin from chafing. They were long enough and big enough to fit on his forearms of his legs. He looked closer to see the Uzumaki swirl pattern lightly traced in the brandished metal. Naruto smirked as he saw his reflection. He looked up as a thought ran into his head. Why the heck not, he said to himself. It's not like I am going to a normal dog from now on. Everyone waited quietly in the office. Senseis were not allowed at the meetings, which was good because everyone was squished already. There was few chairs that were in the office. Hinata sat on Kiba's lap. Kiba had one arm around her waist. Everyone laughed and giggled and joked around, except Sasuke, Shino, and Shikamaru. Then Tsunade cleared her throat. Everyone calmed down. Okay everyone, I am bringing important news. I am thinking of stepping down as Hokage. There was an audible gasp throughout the room. Before anyone could yell at her why, she put her hand up. It seems to be that I am an inadequate Hokage. Sakura snapped out. What makes you say that? Tsunade replied calmly, because last night there was a try on my life, while I was asleep in my own house. There was a dead silence throughout the room. Then she continued, but I have narrowed out the possibilities of who did it, she said, then continued. 1. They know the transporting jutsu, she said, holding up one finger. 2. They have dark hair. She looked to Sasuke. Now Sasuke, I am not saying it was you, but you have both of these qualities. As investigation stands, I have to question all suspects. Do you have an alibi for last night? Around the time between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m.? Sasuke stepped forward. I do, and I was heading home with a slight buzz from the bar I was at. Tsunade quirked an eyebrow. Can anyone back your statement? Sasuke nodded, then fumbled in his pockets. He pulled out a receipt from the bar. Tsunade looked at it. It stated he had a few drinks and a meal at 10:30, and have him leaving at 11:45. She cursed the attack was at 11:30. She sighed. Maybe she really was getting old. She nodded and gave it back. Very well Sasuke, I am sorry about this. It is my duty. Sasuke nodded. I understand completely. But I swear to you, I am trying to turn over a new leaf. I am not the old Sasuke I once was. Before anyone could say a thing, a deep voice rang out. That's right, this Sasuke Uchiha is even more murderous than before. Tsunade whirled around, and everyone looked to the sound of the voice. It was coming from a figure that stood in the window. Hinata gasped, everyone else stared. There was Fluffy, dressed in what looked like chest armor, like Umbu wears, and metal braces on his forearms of his front legs. His hideout was not Hinata's old one but a different one made with black fabric, and across his back a large scroll was strapped. He glared at Sasuke, eyes full of hate. No one said a word until Hinata muttered out, Fluffy? The dog looked to her in context. Yes, but that is not my real name, however. Right now I have more important things on my mind than names. He jumped down and growled at Sasuke. Very clever counterfeit. You had Danzo make you last night. Makes you look almost innocent. I also like the added affect of you turning over a new leaf, but we both know that the only time you turn a leaf is to destroy it. He then jumped on Tsunade's desk and growled. Sasuke backed away. What are you talking about, Mud? Fluffy smirked. Very funny. But unlike you, Uchiha, when I plan my revenge I think things through a lot better. I plan everything and leave no room for error. He paused, sending a knowing look at Sasuke. Like what happened last night. Did I startle you with my howl? Fluffy said, putting his head up indignantly, then said, I know it was startling enough to wake the Hokage up. Then the dog grinned, his fangs showing. Sasuke glared at the dog. Like I said, I have no idea. Fluffy sighed. Sasuke, when will you ever learn? Acting like an idiot will never solve your problems. I learned that the hard way anyway. It doesn't matter, he said, shaking it from mind. Because I have all the evidence of every attempt you have done sealed away. In this scroll. He then flipped the scroll on the desk. In here you will find plans and plots for not only last night's attempt but many others. I saved you from Lady Tsunade. Sasuke glared. He bit his lip in anger. Careful, Sasuke, with that temper of yours. I bet you're wondering how I did all this. How did I know about everything? Seeing the look on Sasuke's face, Fluffy grinned. Then said darkly, didn't I say, Sasuke? That you had better watch yourself? That I would be watching? Does that ring a bell? Sasuke staggered back as if Fluffy had struck him. And no, it can't be possible. Why, you're dead. Fluffy grinned from ear to ear. So I thought as well, but it turned out the demons took pity on me and gave me this body. Not too shabby? He said, turning around as if showing off. A little difficult at first, but it's easier to blend in like this. Sasuke cursed. How did you come back? Fluffy sat down. Easy. Once I died I wandered for a bit, and like I said the demons took pity and here I am. At this time most everyone was confused as hell, trying to figure things out. Shikamaru was burning gears in his mind as he too was trying to clarify what was happening, by only using the verbal Ks that Sasuke and Naruto were giving. Sasuke said nothing, then started, Why not go to the afterlife? Fluffy sighed sadly. Thanks to that little deal I made with Kyuubi, I was not permitted to enter heaven, he sighed. So I was banished to be a ghost, but surprisingly, I met with Kyuubi later, and he did the summoning thing. And then the demon goddess appeared, and what happened well happened, he said, looking down to himself. Sasuke said nothing, but already some realization was coming across the faces of the more smarter of the rookie nine. He yawned. Plus, I really wanted to get revenge on the one who killed me, he said casually, then huffed, but of course, I had to obey Sakura's wishes. I let you return, now you are back, so that promise is paid. Fluffy trailed off, then rose, a glint in his eye. Now I can finally avenge my own death. He snapped at Sasuke. It was silent, then Sakura broke it, saying, Naruto? He flickered his eyes to her. To everyone, then nodded slightly. Correct. I am sorry for fooling you, and mostly you, Hinata. I am very ashamed how I used you to get back, but I hope we can still be friends after this. But right now I have business to take care of. Then Naruto growled lowly. Tsunade stood up, slamming her hands. Naruto leaped away, and turned to her, and yelled, everyone stop this now. Just because a dog talks and says it is Naruto and gives me a scroll saying is evidence does not mean it is true. Ba-chan. Naruto barked out, no pun intended, so forcefully, yet also hinted sadness. Caused her to pause. You sit back down and sip your tea, and read that scroll. I will handle the traitor. You and I both know that one death could never take away my Nindo. There was a silence. I never give up, and I never run away. I proved that once and it cost me, and I am proving it once more, but this time, I will be returning back to you. Tsunade slumped in her chair, then Naruto turned to them. Flickering his eyes back to Sasuke, tell me, Tenge, ready for a real fight this time? Sasuke smirked. Are you sure you can handle this? Naruto grinned. Believe me, Uchiha, this body is armed to the teeth with weapons, all pointing directly at you. Let's see how much you like getting stabbed in the chest with a sword. All I can tell you is it's pretty damn painful. Sasuke winced but stepped forward. Naruto's ears were a flurry of movement, as a few shadow clones appeared. Stay back, this is my fight, no one intersperse, don't worry. You won't lose me a second time, I promise, he said as the clones herded them into a tight group in the corner. Then he switched back to Sasuke. Sasuke drew his sword, Naruto sided his time, his ears were a flurry of movement once more, then 4 clones appeared. But these clones were different. Even Naruto changed. Blue chakra swirled around him, his eyes glowed brightly. Each clone traveled to a certain destination. Each one seemed to stand for a certain element. Naruto was wind. The clone with dark ochre fur and warm amber eyes with a kanji for fire on its forehead obviously stood for fire. Orange-like chakra swirled around him. The next one was water, light blue fur, dark almost purple-gray eyes, with the kanji for water, then a dark brown furred clone. With muddy eyes stood for earth. The chakra around him swirled like a sandstorm. Then the last clone was a bright yellow, its eyes a pulsing green, its fur sparked, and the chakra crackled around him. They lined up perfect spacing and everything. Naruto then quickly cut his wrist with the sharp edge of one of his bracers. The blood splattered to the floor, then the clones and Naruto moved in sync as they went through some sort of dance with ears. It wasn't until halfway through Shikamaru noticed that the blood was animated and moving, writing strange symbols on the floor. It was a very huge, very complex sort of seal, and he could see already that it somehow paralyzed Sasuke, who was straining to move. Then the blood finished writing. Shikamaru could understand very little of it, and he considered himself a seal pro. All he knew was it sealed something very powerful, very strong, but in a way he had never seen. The chakra around the clones formed into ghostly wolf heads, each one howled eerily. Sasuke collapsed to his knees, a strange black mass oozed out of him. He screamed in agony, a terrible ripping and shredding sound filled the room, along with a dark coldness. It sent chills down their spines. This chakra was cold and resentful, something unnatural and not right. It grew more and more, pressing down upon them with an evil pressure, until the full Susanoo warrior was emitting from Sasuke, yet he still cried in agony. The wolf heads pounced, they swirled around the mass. It bellowed and roared demonically, but the wolves were not affected. They just curled tighter and tighter around the mass, seeming to hurt it somewhere. The wolves struck, they grabbed a hold of the mass. It screeched as well did Sasuke. A pulsing light filled the room. The mass shrank and shrank. It fought, but the wolves beat it down, howling and growling. The elemental chakra flared and sparked in the air. Soon both the wolves and the mass disappeared. The room seemed to lighten back up with the coldness gone. Sasuke sat, his head flung backward as he clutched his eyes. They bled and smoked. With one last burst of chakra, Sasuke was flung to the floor. He rolled around slightly, yelling, "Fuck! My eyes! What the hell?" Naruto panted slightly. The 4 clones were gone. "It is finished, my forbidden sealing art. Raging god of battle." Naruto shuddered slightly. It takes quite a bit of chakra, plus to concentrate that much elemental chakra for so long, it's insane. But it effectively seals away your Susanoo, he said finally. You can never access that power ever again. Sasuke stood. He rubbed his eyes once more. "Sealing, huh?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah. I am actually glad I take after my mother. Seals come in handy." Sasuke blinked a few times. "I guess. But you are still at a loss. I can actually use my jutsus. How are you supposed to do Rasengan as a dog?" Naruto growled. "Wolf-fox hybrid," he spat. "Also, I would be glad to show you, but this not the place." Naruto then leapt towards Sasuke. Sasuke brought his sword out. Naruto deflected the blade with his bracers, then used the sword to propel him behind Sasuke. Sasuke turned to him, but not swift enough. Using his jutsu that concentrated his chakra into claws, he swung at Sasuke, who wasn't able to move in time. The claws hit him in the guts. He flew across the room and through a window, clipping the wall with his head on his way out. Naruto landed gracefully on his feet. He turned to his clones. No one intersperses. The clones nodded and formed a guarding circle around everyone. Everyone was shocked for a moment. "I can't believe it. He was alive all this time, and next to us the entire time." Then a clone said softly, "We wanted to keep all of you safe, and so we let you deal with your grief. We also wanted you to learn to get stronger and be able to believe and have faith when we are not there to inspire it." Shikamaru nodded to the clone. "Thank you, Naruto. Even if you are a clone." The clone nodded. "You welcome, ga." "Damn it. Didn't move fast enough." Sakura gasped. "What is it? What's wrong?" The clone shook itself. "Nothing much. Just a flesh wound." Naruto clone smirked. "Tenge got a lucky jab with his oversized butter knife. Nothing I can handle." Then the clone grinned and winked. "Don't go worrying your head about me. I made a promise, remember, stupid? You and your Chidori blade. Let's see how much you like it." It was so ironic. Hinata couldn't stifle the laugh. Either could anyone else. Naruto growled lowly. They were battling it out on the roof. A few chunks of the roof were smoking craters. Another few spots were on fire. Naruto winced. Sasuke got a lucky cut on his left front leg above the brace. Then he got hit by a Chidori blade which had made his back leg go numb for a bit, although he was getting feeling in it once more. Sasuke though didn't escape unscathed either. A large cut bled freely on his hand from where Naruto sunk his teeth. They glared and charged at each other once more. They dodged and intercepted blows. Naruto using his chakra shield to block and even attack, then he brought chakra claws down once more. Sasuke blocked with his sword, but the amount of force added to the fact it was in his weakened hand made him lose his sword, and it flipped end over end in the air and disappeared out of sight. Sasuke flipped backwards and went into the familiar hand signs for the fire release. Great Dragon Fire Technique. A large burst of flames came hurtling at Naruto in the form of a dragon. Naruto quickly brought up his chakra shields. The fire swirled around him as he braced himself in his little dome of safety. Here he was caught in a raging inferno, and knowing Sasuke, he would be using this distraction to come up behind him, or attack him from above. Naruto leaped up, his chakra shield forming to fur around his body as he leaped away from the inferno to intercept Sasuke, who was jumping over the flames to attack from behind. They met in the middle. Naruto did his Great Wolf Fangs no Jutsu and attacked the surprised Sasuke. The large wolf head lunged to snap at him. Sasuke defended it off with fire release, Great Fireball Technique. Both of them landed studying each other when the flames dispersed. All in all they were even. Sasuke bent forward slightly, then using his special bracelets that had shurikens sealed away, he threw dozens of the things at him. Naruto had to dodge them, and in doing so lost track of where Sasuke was. When Sasuke came behind him and used his strong fist, Naruto dodged and sprang up, his teeth sunk into Sasuke's arm. Sasuke sent a small amount of lightning chakra into his fist and punched Naruto in the head to get Naruto off of him. Naruto's fangs dragged across Sasuke's skin, causing him to rip Sasuke's arm wide open. Sasuke exclaimed and tossed him with newfound strength. Naruto flew quite a ways, and the lightning chakra he was hit with messed up his nerves, mainly the ones telling his feet and legs to save him from crashing across the roof and landing in a heap. Naruto staggered to his feet when he was able to. Sasuke was wrapping his arm, he had grown pale from blood loss. Naruto spat the iron taste of blood from his mouth, not knowing if it was Sasuke's or his own. Sasuke glowered at him, then with his able arm and hand he formed a Chidori. It crackled like a 1,000 birds, hence the name. Naruto growled and started to form the Rasengan in his mouth. The two charged at each other, Naruto leaped and Sasuke yelled. The two jutsus collided, an infamous orb once again formed. Naruto stared at Sasuke, Sasuke stared at Naruto. Sasuke was fighting for his life, he had nowhere to go, and no one to go to. Naruto felt his resolve slip ever so slightly, but hardened his heart. You brought this on yourself, Sasuke. What goes around comes around, he thought. Then he sent an extra burst of chakra through his jutsu, and it broke through the Chidori. The combination of the two jutsus expanded and started to tear apart the building. Finally the building had enough and started to collapse. Luckily no one was in it, or near it. Naruto landed on what he thought was a stable pace. He couldn't see where Sasuke landed, but the roof was giving way. Before he could jump away, Sasuke appeared with his sword. Naruto was surprised, but then Sasuke's blade punctured through his armor, and into ribcage, cracking a few ribs. Naruto yelped in sudden pain. Naruto grappled the air, as he fell. He grabbed Sasuke's ankle and with all his might bit down, until he heard a satisfying snap and Sasuke screamed in agony, and they both fell with the building falling upon them. All of them knew something had gone wrong. A terrible roaring sound was heard. Tsunade got up and said they just destroyed that new apartment complex. But before she could say anything more, the clones all howled in agony. All of them disappeared except for one, who stayed for a bit longer. As Sasuke got me, when I fell through and my armor, our ribs cracked. I am buried in the rubble. Sasuke, B broken ankle, low chakra, both of us, bleeding pretty bad, scratch that. Both of us. As then the clone disappeared as well. Tsunade quick as a flash jumped through the huge gaping hole in her office wall, and ran to the pile of rubble. She yelled out Naruto. But there was no reply. Naruto stirred awake, he was in darkness once more. He woke with a start. I can't be dead was his mantra for a few seconds before he realized he was in pain, a lot of it. He looked over himself, he had landed in a good place. A large section of the roof had kept him from being squished by the rest of the stuff. In fact, he even spotted a way out. Naruto slowly moved his body, seeing what was hurt. His front left leg was broken, Sasuke's sword was gone, but he could tell his ribs were more than fractured, and ironically he was stabbed in the chest once more, by a very large wood splinter. Naruto winced as he got up. He felt lightheaded, but he stood. He climbed slowly. His vest was all but destroyed, but still the protection lasted a little while at least. The jumps it took to reach the light jarred him and sent pain throughout his entire being. He coughed, blood filled his mouth, he wheezed. Shit, my lung must be punctured, he thought, and continued on. I must get help, or I will die. Again he added flatly. Naruto made it to the opening. He worked his way through to freedom. He looked down. Tsunade was far below him. Looking intently for something, Naruto saw a flash of light. It was Sasuke. As he had hobbled into view, Naruto could see he held a broken sword. Naruto looked to his side and noticed that the other half of the sword was jutting out from his side. Interesting, he thought to himself. The look in Sasuke's eyes was what gave away his plan. Naruto gasped, then jumped into action, ignoring the protest of his poor body. He rushed to Tsunade's aid, who was too busy looking for him to watch for her own hide. Naruto raced and leaped into the air just as Sasuke had raised his broken sword. Naruto landed just in time, tackling him to the ground. Tsunade turned in surprise and dismay as they wrestled with the last of their strength with each other. Naruto had knocked away the broken blade, his jaws ready to crush Sasuke's jugular. Sasuke was holding him back with his good arm, choking him. Naruto shot a paw forward to strike him. He cut Sasuke's face. Sasuke yelled in pain and loosened his grip. Naruto was merely a few centimeters from achieving his goal, when out of nowhere a voice in a crackled old tone said, "Earth wall of destruction." Naruto glanced in time to see a huge wall of earth. It hit him so hard he felt nothing for a bit. Then his body registered the pain. He blacked out but woke back up when he landed in the dust. The council member then had him captured and pressed him more and more into the ground. Naruto looked to see it was the male village elder Mitokado. Tsunade saw Naruto's pain and what was happening. Then she went over and shook the elder like a dog. Once again, no pun intended. "What the fuck are you doing? Let him go. He's in pain." The elder let the jutsu go only because he couldn't concentrate when someone was shaking him. Tsunade then turned and ran to Naruto's side. He was a reek, an absolute reek. She had seen better looking Kordash. She dare not finish that sentence. She began to remove the destroyed armor. then set out to remove the large wood splinter lodged in his chest. Sakura by that time had arrived. She sank to her side wordlessly, and began to help her. There was so much to do. Everything within him was battered, bruised, or punctured. His ribs on his right side were mostly broken. His lung was punctured and was filling with blood even as they tried to stop all his other bleeding. Naruto coughed up blood, then looked at them. "Don't worry, it doesn't feel as bad as it looks, Ark," he said, trying and failing to comfort them. Then Naruto's eyes started to close and open. "Naruto, what's wrong?" Hinata said, scooting next to his head. "Good, you're here. Everyone is here this time. Last time, it was bad. I was alone. That was the part one hated, dying alone." Hinata started to cry. "We didn't mean to." Naruto breathed haggardly. "There is that stutter again. And don't worry, I know. But the thing is, I really am afraid. No, I am petrified of death." He closed his eyes and a tear rolled out. I don't want to die again. I just came back, and got to see what you guys had grown into. I don't want to leave you. I want to stay." Naruto turned his head slightly, dragging it in the earth. Please. Sakura, don't let me die," he pleaded to her with his voice and eyes. Sakura pushed tears from her eyes. "You're not going to, Naruto. Not until a long time, when you are an old and have lived a good long happy life." Naruto sighed. "I died when I was only 17. I never got to see my dream. I never was able to find a woman and settle down, have children, have a team of my own, none of that. But I still was happy. I had the greatest friends I could ask for. I had senseis and teachers who believed in my dream, and in a way I have trained Konohamaru. He's like a student to me. Yes, I was happy, not old, but happy in a way." Naruto coughed. Naruto whimpered, "It's happening. I can feel the pull once more. Please, Sakura, Tsunade, tell me what to do." Hinata gripped his paw. "Hold on," she whispered. Naruto looked at her. "I am sorry for lying to you. I know you like me, but I am so sorry, even if I was human again." "I don't think." Hinata nodded. "I understand." Naruto grinned. "We had some pretty fun times though. Look what we did with Arashi. I just hope you are able to fight him back if I do." Naruto stopped. His ears were perked, and his eyes focused on something else. For a moment Hinata's blood chilled. She thought that he was gone, seeing that which only those who were going on to the next world saw, but he still breathed. So she turned, and so did everyone else, except Tsunade and Sakura, who were busy trying to save his life. Hinata gasped. That was a woman, dark skin, but beautiful, twigs and leaves were in her hair. Her robes were shimmering and perfect. She had many bangles on her wrists and ankles. Her jewelry was warm amber. She walked confidently up to them. Beside her walked a man that looked like Naruto, only he had red hair and eyes, and a more brown skin. He was taller, and had 9 tails flowing from him, and 2 fox ears. Naruto coughed and said, "Oh, Kami no Megami? Kyu? What are you doing looking like me?" The Kyuubi chuckled and sat down next to him. "Here you lay almost dead, and you are wondering about my appearance. Okay, so I needed a human form. I decided to borrow your image, just change it slightly. It works." The goddess leaned down. "What did you do? Get run over by a building?" She looked at the destroyed building heap. Then Naruto said, "That's exactly what happened." She grinned. "That is why I cannot be mad. Your soul, so strong and happy, able to joke when death is lurking nearby." Naruto coughed. "Well, Kyuubi, go scare death away. Your breath out to do it." The man laughed. "Ha. You are a funny kid, all right. But no, it's not me who will scare death away. Megumi-chan will do that," he said, grinning at her. Naruto smirked. "You're going out now?" He smirked. "Maybe." The goddess elbowed him in the ribs. "Quiet, you overgrown furball. I have to heal my small warrior." Naruto coughed. "I am not small," but then went into a fit of coughing. Quickly turned him to his back. She snapped. Tsunade and Sakura did just that. Megumi put her hands on his chest. "To help you healers, I will give him an image for you to work with." Then like that Naruto's appearance changed back to his real one. He was a human once more. Only he was pale. Blood trickled from his mouth and he had a large puncture in his chest. He wore black pants but no shirt or anything else. You could see a large bruise where his lung was, a small silver shard tuck out of it. Megumi swiftly pulled it out. Naruto's body flinched and he yelped. Megumi started to heal him. Tsunade and Sakura were able to work a lot better now. They had a human anatomy to work with. Naruto looked at each one's face. Shikamaru looked at him. "Come on, Naruto, you can pull through this." Naruto smirked. "You never can truly see how you live your life until you look around at people that are by your sick bed or deathbed." Kyuubi sighed. "You know, if you keep saying you're going to die, you might jinx yourself and really kick the bucket again. Then maybe I can have the goddess of small furry animals resurrect you as a squirrel." Kyuubi snorted. Naruto sighed and Megumi did as well. "You have a terrible humor." Naruto said, "Hey, I am a 9,000-year-old demon. I am easily amused. If I wasn't, I would have died of boredom long ago, or went crazy and tried to attack a village." He grinned out. Good times, good times." Naruto smirked. "Ironic, isn't how life works? I get stabbed in the chest yet again, and you're back in the village you attacked. Hey, what about our deal?" Kyuubi shrugged. "What? I am not attacking it." Naruto sighed. "I died for nothing. You still broke the promise." Then Naruto smirked again. "Thanks," he said. Then his eyes fell. "You know, I am very tired. I think I will go to sleep. That okay, right?" Megumi nodded. "You are out of the clear." Then she stepped away and the image disappeared and Naruto was back to a sleeping wolf form. Shikamaru, Niji, Kiba, and Tsunade and Sakura eased Naruto onto a stretcher and carried him to the hospital. Once Naruto was asleep and under machines for the night, Tsunade turned matters to finding out the information Naruto had paid so dearly for. First she found out that the council members had taken Sasuke Uchiha to a private council center to be healed. She ordered a squad of Anbu to watch him and the council members at all times. Then she went to her office and opened up the scroll marked evidence, and inside read as followed. September 12th, followed Sasuke Uchiha at 1:36 p.m. He entered main hideout number 1, a hidden building in between Negami Snacks and Hodi's bar, entrance hidden under seal. Very unique, wrote down below. Tsunade looked to see intricate patterns. She skimmed it, and side seals weren't her strong suite, so she decided to keep on reading. Sasuke and Danzo talked for half an hour to an hour on various subjects ranging from governmental issues to networking within other villages. Note to self, next mission to Onagakure, find more information on Hitoshi Satomi. September 14th, Sasuke poisoned Tsunade's sake stash, got rid of stash and sealed it away, stole more sake to replace poisoned sake. Tsunade twinged involuntary. Just the thought that someone had found her stash and had messed with it gave her the heebie-jeebies. September 18th, was able to give away location of a would-be assignation attempt when Tsunade was at the grand opening for new factory. Man, Hyushitoyo, was able to come up with good enough alibi and escaped prosecution. September 21st, disengaged bomb that was sent into mail and was carelessly put in the mail room below Hokage office. Note to self, dogs can get paper cuts. Double note, bombs are very touchy. Triple note, move mail room to a different vicinity if I ever become Hokage. The scroll went on and on about different notes. Naruto had even made a list of what each person that worked for Danzo did each day and night for every day. He had everything down to their favorite food and color. I must say his observatory skills have skyrocketed, Tsunade thought dryly to herself, but she smiled inwardly. Naruto had done Class A information gathering. Even she would not hope to do this without placing a person in danger, but Naruto could. I will have to use him for other missions I have in mind. Tsunade thumbed through more of the scroll, studying intently the information Naruto had gathered on the plant that was used to make her poison. If Naruto was master at sealing, she would be master at being able to figure out antidotes to anything. In her head already she was putting together information to make a counter to this new poison. It could be very deadly. Tsunade sighed, but she had more important work to do. Shizen, get me Shikamaru, she said. Shizen rushed off, and a few moments later Shikamaru was in her office standing at attention. Shikamaru, put together a worthy team. You need to hit and sack whatever documents and papers you can get from these various locations. Be careful, some of them are guarded by genjutsu and umbu guards, but Naruto was kind enough to supply all our answers. She handed him the scroll. Shikamaru studied it with a surprised look, then nodded. He left the office. Tsunade leaned back in her chair and looked at the Hokage monument. You know, Yondaime, you should be proud of your son. Even if he no longer has a human body, he still has his heart, and surprisingly he finally got the brains. Shikamaru called together Niji, Lee, Sakura, Choji Ino, and Sai. They formed ranks and were about to leave when Kiba, Hinata and Tenten arrived. We're going with Shikamaru. Naruto did it for all of us, so all of us should do it for him. Shikamaru couldn't argue with them, besides they were right. But he wasn't about to let them know that. They ransacked the nearest location. This one was not guarded by people but various traps. But thankfully Naruto put in detail how to get around each one. They took everything and sealed it away in scrolls, then moved on to the next one and next one. There was 4 buildings in all. Only 2 had people in them. Shikamaru wasn't going to say it was a piece of cake. Some had slipped through their fingers and fled while others fought back hard. But the rookie 9 had the strength and anger to fight back. All in all they did an okay job. But if it wasn't for Naruto's scroll and tips they would have been beaten before they got to the 3rd hideout. The good news was, they were able to capture Danzo. Sure, Sakura had to stitch Shikamaru up, but if Naruto could lay his life on the line, so could Shikamaru, even though he got severe verbal abuse by Sakura, Tenten, and basically everyone. They returned back to the hospital and Sakura led them upstairs to a private wing, to a private room. There inside on the bed an oxygen tube through his mouth, many different IVs coming out of his arms, and layers upon layers of wrappings around his chest and broken leg. Was Naruto still asleep? But a steady strong heartbeat emitted from the machine and Shikamaru couldn't describe it. But even though Naruto looked battered and beaten, he seemed to be stronger, at least in his mind. Sakura walked over silently to him, then leaned down and whispered, we did it, Naruto. We captured Danzo, so you sit back and rest. We got this, you're right. You leaving us did make us stronger. Then she kissed his forehead and walked out of the room. Hinata situated herself in a chair next to him. Shikamaru finally realized how tired he was, and walked over to a chair and was asleep before he even sat down. What if Kyuubi turns Naruto into a fox? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.